cold at the touch, dead in the eyes, no signs of life no more. I put your love under the knife. Leave me to die here all alone. No signs of life no more, no. A crying dove may never fly. It's black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh. 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 It's black and white. Black and white, just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. Just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. It's black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh. 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 It's black and white. It's black and white.
Hello everybody and welcome along to the Next Level Racing 24 hours of COTA, and we are here, like I say, at the beautiful circuit of the Americas Racing facility. Alongside me in the commentary booth for the first 4.5 hours of this race is Jack Oliphant, commonly known as Jacko. How are you doing, mate? You looking forward to this one?
I'm indeed, yeah. I mean, it's going to be absolutely fine. We've had a few technical issues, but we're going to just bypass them. We're just going to pretend that they never happened. 24-hour racing is always filled with drama. We've already had the first little drama of the day. But hopefully we're going to shoot straight into qualifying now. 15 minutes of action-packed flying laps. It should be about 3 laps per team. And then we're going to go starting heading into the 24-hour race itself. And it's going to be, well, I'm excited for it, to be honest. The first 4.5 hours with you, Jack, is going to fly by, I'm sure.
I'm sure it will. Sadly, to the demise of some of these drivers, however, I fear it might drag on because this is a circuit personally that I don't massively enjoy, but I know some of the drivers really have found their niche here. They really do enjoy the fast-flowing nature of the Circuit of the Americas, and I think it suits the classes we've got out today. We've got the Lmp2s, we've got the GTEs, and we've got the GT3s as well, all of which will have their various strengths at different parts of the circuit, which I think is just going to add to the different almost aspects of the 24-hour race, and we could see some very interesting racing, some racing which we might not usually see in a sprint race. So you've got to think, you've got to conserve your tyres, your fuel, make sure you drive within your limits. You make one mistake with the singular fast repair that these drivers have been given. You don't want to use that in the first hour. You want to make sure you save that. If you've got it in the final hour, go into the pit stops, take it, and you can drive the rest of the race with a slightly quicker car possibly. But it's a vastly different concept of racing, having to drive the car flat out for 24 hours, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and there's a whole host of different teams. Obviously, makeup of teams is very important as well. You've got to have between 2 and 6 drivers for this specific event, and they've got to make sure that they're obviously on point at all times, whether it's during the night, during the day. So some drivers have come in here. They've only got 2 teammates. Some drivers are coming here with 6. Majority have 4. But you've got to have a lot of trust in your teammates and make sure that they're aware at all times. And one of the key things for this race as well is obviously something we might not see very much, Jack, is the fact that there is no lighting in this around the Circuit of the Americas. So whoever's doing the night shift is really going to have to be on point. Yeah, they've got to make sure they keep an eye on those number boards. I think you've got Hasser and Ed May for the night stints. We do have a bit of a brief commentary break for a couple of hours within the night. There is still live coverage of everything that's going on, and you will still have the timing available, and you'll see all the battles. There just won't be commentary to go along with it. However, you do have commentary for the first 10.5 hours, so you've got plenty to look forward to. You can see a minimised qualifying session now, only 15 minutes, so plenty of tarmac to drive around in that short amount of time. Just over 5 kilometres, this Circuit of the Americas circuit. Looking at Aaron Taylor now for CXR Project Black, the number 46 machine crosses the line now to go onto his first flying lap. We've got a couple of other cars out at the moment starting to set their laps, this being one of them, Boodman Kuster. Actually, no, I tell a lie, I think he is on his out lap. There is Austin Foster for 4 Elements Racing Team. He is on his flying lap at the moment in the number 29 machine. We've got a couple of other cars out rotating as well. That is the lead car. I think that car there will be the first car to cross the line and set a competitive time. That's Rick Cohen for Next Level Racing Endurance Team. And I think that's something we've got to look forward to as well. All these liveries from top to bottom of the order, you're going to have vastly different looking cars. You can see this one fully chrome with lime green and yellow, where there's some cars which are fully matte, which are going to be incredibly difficult to see at night. And that's not just for viewing pleasure, of course. You can see some of the beautiful liveries, but the drivers, they might struggle to see some of these liveries as well. I'm aware that they've got all of the high-tech LED front and rear lights, but at night, while you're focused, if you've got a matte black car coming up behind you, you might not see it. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if they've had a little bit of contact. Maybe maybe one of their headlights is dimmed or anything like that as well. But with any luck, they'll have obviously they'll be aware. They'll be flashing the drivers around them as well, making sure that the person they're coming up to is going to make sure they're aware. The person going up from behind. But obviously there's closing speeds in this that we have to realise. You mentioned before, Jack, that there are 3 classes. There's the GT3, the GTE, and the Lmp2. So from what we saw in practice, there's about 10 seconds in between each category. So the Lmp2 cars, especially around this section, inspired by the Maggots Beckett's section at Silverstone, will be absolutely flat out. They'll be really fast compared to the likes of the GT3 cars, which aren't so heavily aero influenced. But there's certainly going to be, they're going to have to be aware. And there's not always a fantastic opportunity to overtake either. It's not like you can just fly around the outside of people constantly. They're going to have to be really aware and make sure they're not wrecking, because you said there's some beautiful liveries. The aim of the game is to have the car looking just as good at the end as they do at the beginning. Absolutely. You've got to make sure you look after your car and make sure that you don't make any silly moves. I know from previous experience in endurance racing, to the demise of my teammates, sometimes I've been maybe a little greedy
at the start and picked up some early damage, but you've got to be so cautious. It's easier to almost get caught up in an incident at the start and affect the rest of your race than it is to just to drop back, maybe lose 3 or 4 places. Even if you drop to the back of your class, you've got 24 hours to get back up to the front of that, or get back and fighting for those positions, which I think is what some of the drivers have been doing. Just looking throughout the week, so many teams have been putting up their own hosted sessions, putting up public sessions for people to come along and join, or just, like I say, for the team. They've been putting in the hours, putting in the setup work to make sure they've got everything dialed in, because 24 hours of racing, the car has got to be pinpoint on the mark. You've got to make sure that it's handling well for everybody. You might think you're comfortable in the car, but if a teammate finds it undrivable, you've then got to compromise for each other, so everybody has got a consistent pace that they're comfortable with, and just lapping consistently. I think that is going to be the key word today, Jacko. Just lapping consistently throughout the 24-hour is going to be the way to go. However, somebody that's lapping very quickly is somebody we've dubbed Jelly Bean. This is Jelle in the number 69 Next Level Racing by SJS Esports machine. Just put it on provisional pole position, a 1 minute 50.953. I tell a lie, Harry Pipes has gone to the top of the times for Project Dynamic, a 150.9 flat out. Well, could you guys slow down a bit? Jesus, Bedouin Custer up to the top end of the order for PM Esport outright. Yeah, I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to let them go on now, because as soon as I start mentioning who's got provisional pole position, somebody comes along, and the man that's come along at the moment is the person we were looking at for the entire lap previously, Aaron Taylor, to the top end of the times.
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot of times being set around about now, but it's the LMP2s are really the cars that are out sort of doing these times. They've they're about 3 laps in this qualifying session that they're allowed, and that's about to be used up for the LMP cars. So at the moment, the CXR Project Black is in the pole position seat. He'll probably be, pretty confident with this time there as well. He's 2 tenths ahead. Foster and Custer are extremely close to 2nd and 3rd place cars. And in fact, the Pipes as well in 4th place. So yeah, that 2nd to 5th battle is really very close, but Taylor's set an absolutely, it's a brilliant lap time, to be fair. At the moment, we'll see how the rest of the track, how the rest of the field deal with that. Here come the GTEs, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. You can see all of the GTEs pouring out the pit lane. It's an absolute wash with Porsches. Clearly the favourite for this circuit today. You can see in the background it's just traffic as well, not just in the race or in qualifying. These drivers have got to try and negotiate each other trying to get out the pit lane. This is Apex Hunter United GTE. This is Nicholas Pacheco, pardon me, the number 103. We've got lots of cars pouring out onto the circuit, and pretty much everywhere we look there's a Porsche in shot. We do have a Ford. This is Dennis Neidhart for .exe Esports in what is quite a fetching livery, I've got to say. I quite like that one.
It's very smart indeed. I'm a big fan of the purple at the back end. But if you're wondering about who maybe to look out for in the GTE class, I was keeping a bit of a note of the top 3 teams that were setting some really quick times in practice. Sim Controls X Volante were one of them. .x Esports as well, and IRNL as well. They were the 3 quickest drivers in the 45-minute practice session that we had just before we had a few technical issues. So keep an eye out for them. But you're right, it's just a wash with Porsches at the moment, isn't it? I'm quite surprised I don't see a single BMW N8 or anything in there. So yeah, it may be an interesting one to see how the Ford does against these whole host of German machinery.
Yeah, we've got to keep an eye out to see how obviously the BOP affects some of these drivers, and we know that they are all in theory in the same class. However, it does massively depend on the setup as well, of course. So there's lots of different variables that the drivers have got to play with, and it will all sing true towards the end of the session. All of the LMP2s in the pit lane, I think that is something to do with how the session has been formatted. The LMP2s get the first 5 minutes, and then I think the GTEs get the next 5, and I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing the GT3s finding their way out onto the tarmac. Big lock up there for David Plasman, heading up towards turn 1. Looks like it hasn't affected him too much. Who else have we got out on a fairly quick lap? Justin Nye just crossed the line in another one of the Next Level Racing machines, and that's another livery. We saw it on an LMP2. Now looking at it on the 911 RSR, you're going to find that hard to miss in your rearview mirror. It's chrome, yellow and lime, of course, with those very, very bright LED headlights on that Porsche. And if you can't see it, you'll definitely hear it. That flat 6 engine screaming its way around here. It's I can see why it's the fan favourite.
it looks awesome, it has to be said, and that's what we really like about these sort of events as well. People really push the boat out for their liveries, and it makes it interesting for us as commentators as well. It makes it easier for us to grab. You know, we get accustomed to that sort of livery, and if it stands out like that, then we instantly know that's Justin Naiher, and we can just call that out straight away. So yeah, brilliant liveries all round, and as you said, that flat six engine for the Porsches, you're not going to miss that if anybody's ever heard them in real life as well. The Porsche exhausts in the Super Cup or anything like that, or even the Carrera Cup in Great Britain and the likes, it's absolutely very well. It screams down the straights, and they're brilliant to behold. It's really a spectacle, and hopefully they're going to put on a racing spectacle for us in the virtual world as well, because obviously the 3.5 mile hot asphalt circuit just outside of Austin is going to be host for the next 24 hours. Of just joining us, you know, welcome. Be active in the chat if you want to. Obviously, for the next 24, we'll be able to interact with you guys a little bit. And thank you everybody for tuning in. I know it's a few technical issues, but we're very pleased to have you along. And with any luck, the next level, COTA 24 hours, will be an absolutely thrilling race and one not to forget.
Yeah, let's hope so. We are also here on Simracersworld TV for our 100th broadcast. So thank you very much. If you've been with us at any point along the journey, we really wouldn't be able to do it without you. So thank you very much for all your support, and we hope that we can continue on with the usual level of professionalism. And with another 24 on its way, we're looking like we're going to end up being rather busy over the coming months and hopefully years, of course. David Plasman's still out on the circuit. Lots of drivers starting to set their time. You'll also notice on the left-hand side of your screen on the timing tower the different painted strips. The blue is the Lmp2 and the lime green is the GTE class, and very shortly you'll see the orange painted strips slowly start to crop up here and there, and that's the GT3s. And you'll also notice with the numbers as well that if they are under 100, they are the Lmp2s. If they're between 100 and 200, they are the GTEs. And if they're above 200, they are the GT3s. You can see the first of the GT3s starting to set their times. This is Kevin Unk in the DS-CDA Esports Silver Audi R8 LMS. Another great sounding car, and I think that's something that iRacing have done very well. While the game looks amazing and a lot of the cars handle as you'd expect, they sound absolutely insane.
Yeah, they're bang on the money, aren't they, really? And I have to say, again, Unk pulling out the absolutely stunning livery as well, so another good one to keep on the roster. But at the moment, obviously, the GT3s are coming out, as you said, in that orange strip on the left-hand side of your timing tower. Keep that in mind. Dennis Neihart looks like he's got the .ex Esports pole position at the moment for the GTE class, but obviously we're going to be soon focusing on the GT3s as we're coming into the final couple of minutes of qualifying. It may run over just a touch, or these guys might actually only get a couple of laps in, because the GT3s have been released while the GTEs are still running. They've only just started their final lap, the likes of Dennis Neidhart, and David Plasman's actually gone top of the GTE class in the Sim Controls X Volante Esports car. So a bit of a shake-up in the GTE class, so it's worth keeping an eye on both categories, really, because it's the times are going to absolutely flood in before you know it.
They will do indeed. You can see lots of drivers chopping and changing for position. That was Perry Pinakin for Team DRC Red, just posting his fastest lap time of the session. Who else have we got? We got Raymond Sheffers for Team DRC Blue, another Team DRC machine, improving his position towards the final stages of the session. Jeroen Vatler for Roaring Chicken Nuggets has placed his car 19th respectively, 6th in class. Only provisionally, of course. We do still have some of the GTEs out rotating on the circuit, but more importantly, the GT3s are out and circulating. Morgan Thompson in the CXR Project Black machine, the number 223, just heading out onto his second flying lap. Who else have we got just about to cross the line? We've got your own Vandenbrook for Trackside Wolfpack in one of the beautiful Mercedes. I've got to say, these are one of my favourites, not necessarily to drive, but to look at and to listen to. They are a very good car, and your own Vandenbrook, he's clearly quite the fan of the Mercedes, because he's gone and put it on provisional pole position in class, 24th overall, pole in class with a 2-minute 5.60, and he's got quite the gap to the car behind. Looking at it now, it's over half a second back to Kevin Onk.
Yeah, the Mercedes, I remember covering a couple of VLN rounds earlier in the year, and the Mercedes was always a bit more of the soft car, really. It wasn't quite as quick. It was a bit easier to deal with in terms of obviously handling it around somewhere like the Nordschleife. But it wasn't necessarily the quickest car out there. The likes of the Audi and the BMW were often a little bit quicker, but Vandenbrook seems to have found a setup that he's really enjoying around the circuit of the Americas at the moment, and top of the pile in the GT3 classes. Really very impressive for him. We should have about 39 cars out on circuit at any one time during the 24 hours. So I think although they're obviously splitting up the start between the three categories, it's going to be very, very quickly into traffic, isn't it? Like you said, there are about 10 seconds the difference between these cars. So we'll be able to do all that sort of maths for you before we go into the session. But the qualifying session, checkered flag has been dropped. These are the last couple of lap times that are going to be coming in as we're looking at Bod Boland and the Simracersworld Mercedes as well. Obviously, we got the boss Ian Roots in that car as well later on, so we'll be keeping an eye out on it, even though he's requested that we don't embarrass him too much, but we're going to be calling him out whenever we see him, I'm sure. But yeah, Bod, at the moment, it looks like he's in 5th or 6th position.
Yeah, definitely room for improvement. But we know what Bod's like. His qualifying pace can be there or thereabouts. However, his race pace is really where he starts to shine. Let's see what he does. Crosses the line now. He was in 6th place. He does improve his time, but I don't think he improved his position on first glance. He won't have time for another lap, of course. And I think that will bring an end to our qualifying session. Is anybody still driving towards the line? Morgan Thompson for CXR Project Black, going through the final couple of corners, through the penultimate corner, through the final corner in a few moments' time. And it looks like, just looking at the sector times, he might not improve this time by. However, I could be proved wrong. Driving towards the timing beam now. Currently in 4th position, does improve, goes 3rd in class and 27th overall. So Morgan Thompson promoting himself up another position, and I think that is everybody left to do a lap. There is Kevin Unk in the number 216. I don't think he would have got another lap. No, so we're just ticking over towards the final few seconds of the session. Bod Boland roaring by in that mighty Mercedes, and I think he will be the last driver still circulating. By the looks of it, he is. So just wait for Bob to decide that he won't get another lap. Let's hope that he pulls the car into the pit lane this time by. And then we
he just wants another practice lap, doesn't he, Bod? He wants to keep going.
Yeah, that's literally all it is. He's enjoying it so much. Let's hope that we do get some qualifying results for you on the way. There we go. So the session should tick over in just a few moments' time. And there it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand you over to Jack Oliphant to run you through the LMP2 grid.
Yeah, the Lmp2 pole position man is Aaron Taylor, the CXR Project Black car. PM Esports in 2nd place and Apex Hunters in 3rd. Project Dynamica in 4th, and rounding up the top 5 are the Next Level Racing by SJS. Next Level Racing Endurance, so Rick Cohen is in 6th, Furs in 7th, Coleman in 8th, Colmel in 9th, and Duluth in 10th. Ostavir is in 11th, and Google is in 12th.
And there you go, that's rounded out, I think. Let me go down another couple of rows. There we go.
Yeah, Austin Foster 13th, DeWall in 14th, and Buschart in 15th place.
So, yeah, thank you very much, Jacko. David Plasman starts on pole position in the GTEs for Sim X Controls. Volante, Dennis Neidhart starts in 2nd place with Justin van der Linden in 3rd. Perry Pinaken in 4th. On to, it's jumped down a couple more rows. Sorry about that, everybody. Where did we get to? We got to Mac Lubser for Digital Apex Racing. Jeroen Vatlet starts in 6th. Raymond Sheffiers starts in 7th. We should have a couple more rows available to us. Justin Nair starts in 8th. And it's dropped us down a few more. Leslie, who is that? Leslie Vandenbrink starts in 9th. Arjan van der Gol for IRNL Orange starts in 10th place, and the final of our GTE qualifications is Nicholas Patrio, and I'm going to hand you back over to Jacko to run you through the GT3 qualifications.
Yeah, pole on GT3 is Jeroen van Den, and he's in the trackside Wolfpack car with Kevin Unk in 2nd place, Morgan Thompson in 3rd, Will Egby in 4th place, Rene Dujan in 5th, and Bob Boland for the Simracersworld Esports car in 6th. And in 7th place, there we go, is Zielga in the Bazinga Motorsport. Hugendorn in 8th place, Darnert in 9th, if I get this wrong, but Ullenbrook in 10th, Deals in 11th, Van Werkum in 12th place, and Kalk in 13th place. So a very full grid as the LMP2 cars are getting away. The safety car just leading them around. Obviously, there's going to be a couple of seconds in between each category. But I'm very much looking forward to the next 24 hours, Jack. I hope you are too, and I hope everybody is watching as well. It's going to be action-packed and absolutely awesome. So going to be, hopefully, a calm first lap or two, so there's no fast repairs needed in the first stages. Yeah,
let's hope not. Let's hope there aren't any incidents. Like you say, let's hope the GT drivers are starting to drop back. Yep, they've left a comfortable gap, and I'm sure the GT3s are just starting to roll now. There we go. So the LMP2s heading through the final sector. Just a couple more corners to go, being led around by the Porsche 911 safety car. And this is where it all starts. This is arguably one of the most important parts of the race. If you can nail the start, keep it clean, it will set you up for a very good 24 hours worth of racing. Like you say, CXR Project Black starting on pole position. They have got the inside line for turn 1. Very unique turn 1, up a hill and a heavy braking zone just as you reach the crest. So prone to lockups at turn 1. And we know what the LMP2 is like for its lockups, obviously with no aids apart from traction control, so the drivers have got it all to do on the brakes. And the 24 hours of COTA by Next Level Racing in a few moments time, when Aaron Taylor decides to punch the throttle, getting closer and closer to the line. He puts his foot down now, and we are away for the 24 hours of COTA by Next Level Racing, led by Aaron Taylor for the moment. What a great start by Nick Foster. He's already challenging for the lead, almost 3 wide on the run up towards turn 1. Aaron Taylor's got the inside line, grabs the apex 3 wide through turn 1. There is major contact. One of the cars gets spat out towards the outside of the circuit. That was Boudwin Kuster from the front row of the grid. Is now demoted right down into 9th, and I think the GTEs are already away, led by David Plasman. He's already started to extend his gap, and LMP2's in the mix, and I think the GT3s are already away, Jacko.
Yeah, the GT3s are already away, and Vandenbrook actually looks like he's got an absolutely amazing jump from Kevin Unk at the moment, and the GT3s actually look like the calmest of the lot so far. Touch wood, commentators curse aside, shall we say, but yeah, the Next Level racing by SJS Esports as well in the LMP2 car has fallen down the order, and there's been big contact. And we stick with the GT3s. I think we may well see them in a couple of seconds, because I think there's been a little bit of a crash. The front end of the field is Bob Boland in the GT3 category as well in the Mercedes, and we can go to a replay now. And this is Bob Boland's view by the looks of it, but I think the incident may... Well, let's have a look and see what we got in store for us here as he comes into the first corner. He gets a tap off the rear of the car behind, and that just turns him around. And unfortunately, there's no damage. It has slowed him up at the start, but to be honest, it's probably the best case scenario. If you're going to have an accident at the start, that's the kind of accident you want.
Yeah, however, I fear that Marcus Goebel has had a rather large incident in comparison. Here is Leslie Vandenbrook with an incident. What happens here? Late on the brakes, turns in towards the apex. Does he turn across the front of anybody? No, both cars going for the same piece of tarmac. Not what we like to see off the start. A few little incidents, but I think it's still staying rather tame. We saw as we cut back from the replay, Marcus Goebel pointing backwards. I'm not sure what happened there. Nothing's popped up on the timing screen, so I fear it was just maybe a slight mistake, a little bit of a wiggle through there, so maybe not quite up to temperature or not quite on terms with the car as of yet. But that beautiful livery, surely that makes him go quicker, because we all know a good-looking car can only go quick.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you stick some racing stripes on your Ford Fiesta at home, it gives it an extra 20 horsepower. So a good-looking livery we know has a big impact. But Nick Foster at the moment in the Apex Hunters United car, and this is Dalu in the Kart Academy car in 7th place. He's gained 3 positions, actually. So a good start by Freddie Koeman in the Team DRC orange car, just ahead of the car you're looking at now, Custer, who's had a poor start. Well, Koeman's actually gained 4 positions, started in 8th place. He's up to 4th now, as Custer, we saw him on the front row of the grid, had a little bit of an incident in turn 1. He seems to have recovered reasonably well. He's in a half-decent track position, clean air in front of him. Well, clean-ish air at the start of the race. It's probably about as good as you can hope for. So he'll probably be getting the hammer down, just trying to get into a rhythm, making sure he's not getting any contact or scrubbing the tyres too much, and just try and bed himself into the 24-hour race. Here's Raymond Sheffers in the mid-pack of the GTE category, and as you said before, you can pretty much guess which the key GTE category is, because it's the one with all the Porsches in it. It's basically a Porsche race with two Ferraris and a Ford thrown in there for good measure. David Plasman in a Porsche is currently leading that pack. But to be fair, Dennis Neidhart, in the only Ford on the grid, is in second place, and he's actually gained 2 positions by the looks of it, thanks to there being a few incidents with an LMP2 car or 2, and they're all the way back at the back of the grid already.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what has happened to the drivers towards the tail end of the order. We saw Milan Tikans working his way through the GT3 pack. The car looks, on initial inspection, to be fairly straight. Doesn't look like there's any damage on that car, so whether he just started from the pit lane, I'm not sure. We do have stewards obviously here as well. That's Artie Boschart or on the cameras, just monitoring the race as it goes on. And this is Louis Eggleston. I think he might actually be a lap down. He's just still on the tail end of his GT3 companions. And that's nothing major really. Being a lap down on lap 1, yes, it's not ideal, but we've got to remember you've got 24 hours of racing still to go, so there's plenty of time for you to pick up all these places. And you've got to remember that just because you've had a poor start doesn't mean everybody else has had an absolute blinder of a start. They can still have the incidents and still have the mistakes. As long as you drive your own race, there's still a chance of an amazing result. That got very close there between Louis and the number 225 machine. I think who was that just in front of him? I'll try and find it. It wasn't Bod Boland. I think it was Dimmy Deals that he almost went into the tail end of. That was a very, very close quarter battle already, and we're only on the opening couple of laps.
Yeah, and this is obviously people are trying to bed themselves into and get a good track position so they can get into a rhythm. This is where you'll see probably a lot of the overtakes really that aren't based on strategy or being lapped or anything like that. So obviously everybody wants to try and get a good track position, as Fredo Koeman is actually trying to defend from Custer now, who we know has fantastic one-lap pace, but he really needs to just forget about that fact that he had a poor start or a little spin, because he's still within the top 5. And if he can just maybe get ahead of this 14 car, start to settle in, maybe take some time to sort of like think about maybe his tyres and the sort of fuel potentially, and maybe the slipstream that he's actually gaining from being behind a car like Koeman, and sort of bed himself in, because as we said, this is what it needs to be. 24 hours is a long time, and like you said, Jack, if you're even 1 lap down, yeah, someone uses their fast repair up, and then all of a sudden they have to have another accident, they have to have another pit stop. That can be 40 minutes in the pits, and that's about 10 or 15 laps down. So they really need to keep that in mind.
They definitely do. There is Kevin Naval. At the moment, in no man's land already. He's got a second either side of him, so quite a sizable gap already. Bearing in mind we are only on lap 4 of the race. The battle for P2 is hotting up. This is Nick Foster for Apex Hunters United LMP2, defending from Rick Cohen in the Next Level Racing Endurance Team LMP2. You can see there 2 great liveries battling away, and I think Nick Foster's just showing off that while the traction control sometimes it works against you, it can work for you. The very undulating circuit here at Circuit of the Americas, bouncing over the curbs a little bit by Nick Foster, and Rick Cohen said, all right, I'll show you how you do it. Puts almost all 4s off the ground, and Nick Foster, you saw him just get a bit sideways out of a couple of corners, but the traction control almost collected the moment up. And as much as it loses time and as much as it looks good, it's not something you want to do, because it could also maybe slightly affect your race pace if you're doing that fairly often. However, it looks like it's worked for him at the moment, and he might have fended off Rick Cohen for another couple of corners. That little mistake bouncing over the curbs has cost Rick a fair bit of time, and the lead gap up to Aaron Taylor is already 4.1 seconds. I'm aware that Nick Foster has obviously got himself occupied with Rick Cohen in his rearview mirror, but Aaron Taylor, he's really showing us how he's supposed to do it, up into the lead. Like I say, 4 seconds to the good already.
Yeah, it's almost 12 minutes into this race, and he'll probably be hoping that it's a 24-minute race and not a 24-hour one, because he's absolutely flying away from the rest of the field at the moment. Exactly the sort of start that he was hoping for from pole position, leading the race very well on the CXR Project Black car, and he's clearly got a good pace. He was 2 tenths quicker than the rest of the field. Oh, that's not good from Joel in the Radeon Motorsport R8. Let's see if we can get a quick replay and see what happened. It looks like he was just going through the first section. Oh, it's a big curve to hit. That's the last thing you want to do. Is he comes across the Mercedes. He did very well not to hit it, to be fair. Well, he didn't have any control. The Mercedes did well not to hit the spinning Audi, but that is what you want to keep off those curves. And the GT3 car is probably actually the most forgiving out of all the classes that we've got today. So I was very surprised to see the LMP2 cars actually absolutely murder the curb on the inside of the corner. We just saw here, but it is Max Dehart, and he's having to defend from Egerstone. Let's see if he can actually manage to do it, going down a very long straight here. It's a heavy braking zone. Who's going to be brave? The last of the late breakers, the Simracersworld GT3 car is looking like he wants to get involved as well. Bob Bolland, potentially not. He wants to see how this is actually going to unfold and then maybe pick his position and take an easy pass as the flash of the lights from Egerstone to try and put his team, not his teammate, his rival off.
Yeah, that seems to be the play at the moment, but you've got to think, if you are Max in the number 298, what do you do at this point? Do you battle the car behind? Bearing in mind you're only, 9 minutes into the race. Is it worth using up your tyres and using up your concentration and maybe almost wearing yourself out? As it's not a massively physical sport, but we don't know what sort of setup he's got. He could have a direct drive wheel, which puts all the forces obviously through his arms, and obviously the concentration that you've got to keep on what is a very demanding circuit. If you wear yourself out now, come the end of your stint, whether you're doing a 2, maybe 3 hour stint, probably not at this stage, but a 2 hour stint looks more than likely, you're going to be rather tired come the end of the race, or come the end of your stint, and obviously your car's going to start to feel worse for wear as well. A big look up the inside by Louis Egerstone, doesn't make the move completely. He's almost alongside once again, but definitely making his intentions known. You can see Bob Boland's got the best seats in the house for this. He's dropped back a little bit, put a bit of breathing space between himself and the cars ahead, maybe preempting an incident, or he's just more than happy to sit back and watch it unfold in front of him. But it's Mercedes versus Mercedes versus Mercedes at this point. A couple of people asking to see the start. I do think we will have that available to us if we have a look back to Aaron Taylor at the start. So he punches the throttle there, and what I want to do is have a look at Boudwin Kuster, currently in 4th position as it stands. He was in 2nd position at this point from the start, has a look around the outside, and 3 into 1 just doesn't go and gets elbowed out to the side of the track. Let's hope that hasn't done too much damage. In the background, the GTE's got away. David Plassman got an amazing start, however he was hounded up to turn 1 by Dennis Neidhart in the .exe Esports family car. And then around the outside of the number 18 LMP2, obviously starting towards the tail end of the order, and all fairly tame in the GTEs. Back to the GT3s though. There is Kevin Unk, and he's now in the lead respectively overall. However, that Mercedes up the road, I'm not 100% sure where he is. There's Bob Boland pointing backwards. Who was that? That was in the lead.
Jerome Vandenbrook, I believe.
Yeah, he's dropped massively back. Good spot there. The number 210, who was in the lead on lap 1. If we go back live to have a look now, he's right the way down 10th in class. He's lost 8 positions from where he started with an earlier incident. So we'll have to have a look to see whether anything pops up with that. But a lot of drivers also pushing the track limits by the looks of it, Jacko. This is Christian Furs. Too wide through there. Isn't going to go. Another incident for the number 234 Audi. And the number 6 LMP2 left stricken in the gravel. Let's have another look back at that, see what you make of that.
Well, to be honest, it's one of those areas where I was talking in qualifying and in the practice before we sort of got into the race. You can't always expect to go flying around the outside. The closing speed is so much, but as the faster car, it's up to you to be the responsible one and make sure that you're sort of doing the safe thing. And it looked like he was diving at the inside. I mean, we didn't get to have a chance to look too far back at the incident. It may have just been 2 cars going for the same bit of track, but going through that sort of first sector that's inspired by the Maggots Beckett section at Silverstone, you really need to sort of, if you're the closing car, you really need to sort of make sure you're doing the smart thing rather than more than sort of hot-headed, just want to get past straight away, because although it's the opening stages of the race, there is an awfully long way to go, and realistically, if you're held up by 10-15 seconds while trying to lap another car, it's not the end of the world. It'll come back to you eventually. What's worse is having a big spin and having contact and potentially get a penalty for it.
Yeah, that's not what we want, especially at this stage in the race, like you mentioned. But it looks like people are slowly starting to settle in. Your own Vattler, he's in a tricky situation here because he might want to sit behind the number 121 DRC red machine up in front. I say that, a big send up to the inside, a big lock up as well on the front left tyre. A bit of a sideways moment for Justin van der Linden behind. It looked like your own Battler. He is in a tricky situation because as much as he might want to sit behind, or as much as he might want to overtake Perry Benarken in front, he's got Justin van der Linden behind as well, hounding him around the circuit. So if he wants to sit back and save a bit of fuel, he may get a bit too much pressure from behind and cave into a little mistake, but he might also want to overtake. However, he's got to make sure that he does it safely because there's a car following him and it could go from one position possibly gained to 2 positions lost. So a very tricky situation for your own Battler to negotiate. Have we had an incident further up the road? It looked like there was a bit of flickering on the timing screen, possibly not. Just Marcus Goebel negotiating some of the GT3 traffic, and that's something that you mentioned briefly, but it's something we need to almost look into a little bit more because traffic is one of it's a really sensitive subject, really, because if you think if you're the LMP2 driver, as much as you want to get by quickly, like you say, if you are the quicker car, you've both got pretty much equal responsibility, but the quicker car tends to be the one that makes the decision. He's the one that decides which way he goes to pass the car in front. And on a circuit which is, well, for the first sector, pretty one way. You don't want to go too wide through much of the first sector. You've got to be so patient, and that's another thing. Consistency and patience in a 24-hour race, they are both key assets to your team. And if you've got a driver that can do both, you're pretty much set.
Yeah, I mean, well, whenever I've been in a race and in real life and on the sim sort of thing, if you're the fast, we've been told if you're the faster car, it's your responsibility to make it safe. That you can't expect the driver in front of you to drive in their mirrors, and because they might just make an absolutely huge mistake and go straight on. They might miss their braking point. They might just get a bit sort of nervous with the car coming up behind them, especially the closing speed that these LMP cars have got on the likes of the GT3s. You can see them now. That 72 car, he came from about 100 yards back, and he's already up the inside of the Mercedes before he knows it. So it really is sort of, I would say, down to the responsibility of the LMP cars to make sure they're not doing anything silly and making sure if they need to flash their lights, then they need to actually make sure that they're moving the GT3s out of the way, or they're telling them that they're coming up fast. And on the GT3s, as you said, do have a responsibility to make sure they're not doing anything silly, but it's a difficult one. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
It really is, and somebody that didn't need a second chance here. Your own Battler looked one way, sold him the dummy, and your own Battler promoting himself up into P3 in class. So at the moment, I know it's very early on, but he is in the podium places for his class. However, that DRC red machine, he might have lost the position, but he's not wanted to give it almost into the rear bumper there of the Ferrari in front. Somebody that's got the best seats in the house, and I think we're going to steal them off him, is Justin van der Linden. Now tearing down the straight in towards one of the heaviest braking zones on the circuit before the very sharp left-hander. Keep an eye out for the cars in front. Is anybody going to look for a move as of yet? No. I think this is the point where if you are on comms to your team, which I'd expect, this is where you go, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to sit behind and just save a bit of fuel? It might not save you a lap's worth of fuel with it being a 5-kilometre circuit, but it could save you a couple of seconds in the pit stop, and if a couple of seconds add up, pit stop to pit stop to pit stop, over a 24-hour race, it can add up to quite a nice little advantage, and that could be something that you might need in hand, because we've seen it already. A few little mistakes can lose you a lot of time, and if you can start picking up little bits of time here and there, whether it's fuel saving, so you spend less time in the pits, tyre management, or maybe just going for those overtakes, building that gap, and sort of altering your driving style on your situation, it can add up to what could be quite a nice result come the end of the race.
Yeah, you need to bank that time. It's exactly like you said. If you can save just that a little bit extra fuel, that saves you maybe 15, 20 seconds, and you accidentally get a bit of damage, that punishes you in the pit stop. So you have to, obviously, after you've used your fast repair or something like that, and you actually have to sit in the pit stops for 5 minutes. Well, at least you sort of banked 20 seconds off that as well. So it's sort of playing with the worst case scenario. If I was on the comms to the RLN guy, the red team, sorry, it would be, make sure that you're just watching what the guys in front of you are doing, save that fuel, hit the same lines as they may be doing, and just sort of wait for your time, because if they lunge each other, then they'll be, easy pickings compared to having to sort of side through them straight away. And Battler and Pjanaken, I'll have to write that down in a second, Jack, sorry, but they'll be certainly sort of thinking the difficult place to be is in the middle of the three.
Yeah, it's such a difficult situation to be in. We've had a couple of incidents for Arjen van Grol. This is not what we're supposed to be looking at. Let's double click it again, see where we end up. There is Arjun van Grol for IRNL Orange through the penultimate corner. Has a bit of a wiggle on, overcorrects, spits him across the track. And that is an easy incident or an easy little mistake to make. And he does get back going once again. And there we go. Just a little mistake like that can cost you so much time. On the face of it, it doesn't look like a major incident, but little mistakes like that can massively add up as the race wears on. We're looking at his teammate now, Justin van der Linden, who has had no such shortcomings, still in 5th position in class. And the class we haven't looked at much is the GT3 class. And they're having a few good little battles. This one led by Max Darnett for KF Motorsport. Then it's Louis Edgerton, and then it's Bod Boland, almost playing rear gunner at this point. And once again, it's 3 Mercedes versus 3 Mercedes, and it's another 3-car battle where the car in the middle has got all the work to do. Does he play aggressive in the 218, or does he just focus on Bod Boland behind? I'm not sure how long he'll have to do that though. Bod Boland, a massive look at the inside, hard on the brakes, gets the car slowed down and gets the run out of the corner. Position made, textbook overtake from the Simracersworld Esports driver.
Yeah, that was absolutely full send, wasn't it? That was the sort of thing where he's maybe planning on having a half-an-hour race rather than a 24. Straight up the inside, he's taking the initiative. He wants to go full-on attack mode here. He's got a little bit of a bent rear wing by the looks of it as well. He was looking back up the inside of the car ahead of him now as well. So Max Dannert is actually going to have to worry a little bit more about it. But Eggerton looks like he's going to try and move up the inside. No, he's not. So he's done the right thing there. But yeah, Bod Boland not messing around. He wants to get straight through the traffic.
Yeah, I want to have another look back at that. You can see up towards the left-hander, has a look, lets his intentions be known, hard on the brakes, thinks about pulling back in and goes, right, now I'm committed to this, and then there you go, position made. And like you say, he does have that damage on the rear wing caused by, I think, the lap 1 incident. However, it doesn't seem to be affecting him as he's already got past Louis Edgerton, and he's going, right, let's be having it. And he's going against Max Darnett now for KF Motorsport, another position possibly on the cards for Bod Boland, currently in 9th in class, 34th overall, and he is alongside. He will have the run just about towards the start. Now it looks like this is where setup can play a part as well. Bod Boland, he had the better run coming out the corner, pulled out of the draft, slowed down. That's a late move, and just about managed to get it slowed down. The number 246 of Bod Boland loses 2 positions there, I fear, but to be fair, that was almost good avoidance driving. That was very close to an incident. He thought, if I lose this position now, it's not going to cost me too much because I've got over 23 hours of racing still to go. So, albeit a position lost after he's just made it, he has avoided an incident and we can continue racing.
Yeah, Max Dennart was really aggressive with the defence there. He was clearly trying to show Bod Boland up the towards the squeeze. The inside, and Bod's gone into the inside as well. And he's forced. I tell you what, Bod is a force to be reckoned with. At the moment, Louis Eggerton is the driver that's feeling the pressure from him at the moment. He'll probably just be thinking, all right, if you want to have the play so badly, let's just calm down. You can have it, and you can have a go at Dennart and see what happens, because Bod is not messing about. We said that he was full throttle, and he's showing that intentions now again. Let's see, it'll be a repeat of Max Dennart versus Boland sooner rather than later, and we want to keep an eye on it because it's absolutely spicy.
It really is Bod Boland, although he has now got past the Project Dynamic 2 machine. He has got a bigger gap to the car in front this time by, so he will have to work harder to get that position made once again. But it does now mean he doesn't have a car in front of him, so he won't have the draft assistance, but he is in clean air. So while he might keep an eye on his rearview mirror, he's pretty much stapled Louis Edgerton with his intentions. He's gone, right, I've done it once, I'll do it again. I'm now back in front of you. Just stay where you are, and we might be able to work together. And that is something that I think a few of the teams can work on. Whether they've got communication with each other, I don't know. But if you've got quite the gap to the car ahead, you can work with another team, maybe not overtake each other, but almost push each other around, just building up a bit of a buffer and start to close that gap to the lead car. And that's another strategy which the drivers can play with. So, I mean, on the face of it, you think it's just cars driving around in circles for 24 hours, but there's so much you can do with strategy and setup and which driver you put in the car at which point, going off, like just playing to their advantages. And it can massively shape your race, and I'm sure with the amount of time I've seen these drivers have put in, they definitely know what they're going to do. And Bod Boland, well, Simracersworld Esports, they put him in the car to start, and they've definitely chosen the right driver to do it, because he's on an absolute mission up through the order, making up for that that incident at the start. As it stands, he lost 2 positions, but he's showing us that he don't want to stay there for too long. He's definitely trying to work his way back up through the order.
Yeah, he's back to where he qualified, to be fair. Egerson has actually lost 3 places. Denart is actually up 4 places. So, you know, it has been a bit of a mix around in the order for the GT3 class. And it's because of this intense driving. And the Mercedes really putting on a show here. We said that the GTEs is the class of the Porsche. Looks like Bod Boland is going up the inside here, though. So I'll keep a pin on that as he flies up the inside of Denart, who clearly saw that one coming. But there's a bit of an incident in the back. Was there a touch between Denart and Egerson? I think if there was, it was a low impact one, because neither of the cars were that damaged. But you can see Bob Boland flying at the inside. Intentions known. Denart knew he was coming, and here's the closing speed between Egerson. Had to go and put his car on the inside. There was a bit of a touch. Luckily, everybody's just gotten about away with that. But I think Egerson just didn't really anticipate. Although, having said that, he's back up the inside now, and Denart could actually end up falling back 2 places at the most. About the same amount of corners. He's defending hard here. Egerson has actually just about stayed behind, but Bod Boland is seeing this in his rearview mirrors and thinking, yeah, well, I've gotten past you both now. I'm going to drive off into the distance. Thank you very much for playing.
Yeah, that's why we looked at him. He's just sat there and he's gone, right, I've passed the both of you, and I'm just going to leave you to it now. And he's definitely chosen the right time to do it, because the cars behind are battling harder than ever. And Bod Boland, having just made the pass just a few corners ago, he's now 1.3 seconds to the good, so he is out of the draft range. However, at this point, I would say that although the 2 cars behind want to work together, it doesn't look like they are. They are basically pushing each other around. But Louis Edgerton wanting to show the KF Motorsport car what he's made of. 35th place respectively at the moment, 10th in class. Has a little look up the inside, nothing comes of it, but he does start to elbow Max Denart out wide. Maybe not this time, but these two, they're definitely, it's on the cards for a swap of position. How long that lasts, I don't know, because we've seen it already. They might make the position, or they might change position at the start of the lap. Come the end of the lap, they could have done it 3, 4, maybe 5 more times, because it's just the nature of the circuit. It can be fairly easy to overtake when you're in similar machinery, and at this point, the 2 drivers, the 2 cars, they look pretty much on par, and they are battling and showing it off. I'm guessing that these 2 will probably trade positions for the next couple of hours.
Yeah, and it's going to be something we want to keep an eye out, as he just lets the LMP car. That's the leader of the race, in fact, Aaron Taylor, now carving through this little battle. Obviously, this is the bit that they really need to be aware of, because as these Mercedes and the GT3s and GTE cars are battling for their own position, you know, Louis Egerton has actually had to drop away from his battle just to let an LMP car through. So that could be the problem, really. If you're sort of having the faster cars flying through you, you really need to keep an eye on, obviously, not trying to lose too much time for the driver you're actually fighting, but also letting these LMP cars through so you don't cause an incident. Here is Danny Hudgendorn of the Esports red car, and he's actually doing quite a good job as well in that sort of mid-pack for the GT3, just ahead of that fight that we're looking at. And he's actually got Deals just ahead of him, so Deals has actually overtaken him. So, yeah, this could potentially drop back towards the likes of Bod Boland as long as he's not careful. And up is Teekens as well, who had a bit of an incident in the first couple of laps. He's back where he wanted to be now, in 9th place overall. And that absolutely stunning next level racing car in 10th place of Joris Blom as well. So, yeah, a whole host of really close battles that are going on here. Big dive up the inside, and I don't think Denart was expecting that. And he's been forced off the circuit, and that's left his opponent through as well. Egerton is going to be very, very annoyed about that, because the LMP cars didn't look like they were playing particularly nice there.
That was Budwin Kuster. He's now back up into 2nd place overall. He's been having a nice long battle with Rick Cohen, and like you say, that was Max Denart being forced out wide. Louis Egerton has been pretty much gifted the position now, up into 34th place, 9th in class, and Max Denart will not be happy with that. He will try and get that position back. Well, back up to the front though, although they've just been working their way through traffic. There's contact there. That's a Mercedes forced out wide. I think Budwin Kuster, he was on the inside. Both cars once again for the same piece of tarmac, I fear. I'm trying to figure out who that was. No incident has popped up. There's the change of position for second place. Vandenbrook with the best cutback in the world. There you go. Puts his foot to the floor. He carries the momentum and therefore gets the better run onto the long straight. That's definitely where he wants to do it, because you need all the advantage you can get with the draft assistance, of course, but textbook stuff from Vandenbrook. And that little hairpin before the straight really is a hot spot for overtaking. We'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, for sure. Not only lunges up the inside, but obviously that cutback as well. It's all about the exit, because that's pretty much the longest stretch of road that you're going to be flat out on this circuit, around the circuit of the Americas. So you want to make sure that it's the cleanest exit. Often they say the point before the sort of longest straight is often the most important corner of the circuit. And I think Custer just showed that there. Although he lost the apex, the clean exit out of the corner really gave him the impetus to go back round his opponent and drop him a little bit as well. I'm sure they'll be backfighting before you know it as they go round one of the GT3 cars. But yeah, you always have to keep an eye out on getting a really clean exit, especially if you're going to have your foot to the floor for such a long time. Because if you come out of the corner even 3 miles an hour slower than your opponent, you're going to be 3 miles an hour slower for the entirety of the straight. So it's really important to get that right. And by the looks of it, Custer knows that, and he's absolutely using it to his advantage.
He really is doing a brilliant job in second place now, making up for that incident. That was quite a hefty incident at the start. It was side-by-side contact, but with the Dallara P217 being such almost a race-ready car, the suspension is so stiff, and that little elbow out wide bounced the car onto the runoff. Let's hope it hasn't caused any floor damage, because from personal experience after racing at Monza, I know that floor damage can massively hurt your race and even overheat your engine, maybe damage the underside of your car a little too much. But it looks like nothing of the like is affecting Vandenbrook up in second place, like I mentioned, and he's slowly starting to build that gap up to Rick Cohen, almost up to a second now. Gets the better run once again going onto the straight, and he is slowly starting to extend that margin. Further back in the LMP2 class, we have Jelle in the next level racing by SJS Esports machine, which sadly doesn't have a livery. I think I've had it sent to me, so I will try and get that applied. I'm not sure whether it will show up immediately, however. But Austin Foster is hounding him around the circuit, hounding him down the straights. And these LMP2s, they really do produce some amazing racing. A big look up the inside by Austin Foster. Decides that maybe that time isn't quite the time to swap positions. But the number 29 versus the number 69. It looks like for the moment that these two are just going to be battling away for a long while. And that's pretty much the same story everywhere else we look, Jacko. If we look just a little further back at a Gte Battle, this is Justin van der Linden trying to fend off Matt Lubser in the digital Apex racing machine. It's once again just cars battling toe-to-toe, having very similar lap times and looking at all the same points of the circuit. A little look here and maybe a slight late break at another corner, but it tends to stay as it is. Maybe a couple of position swaps. However, I think for the moment all the positions are going to stay as they are. That's if a car doesn't peel off into the pit lane. What has happened to Austin Foster?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. His car looks clean, it looks smart, and we're only half an hour into this race. So unless it's a drive-through or a stop-and-go penalty potentially, I'm not entirely sure. But it looks like he's going for a pit position. Let's see where he ends up. He is actually in a pit position. Let's see if his car gets on the boosters, because we know that'll be tyres and or fuel. It's not going to be a driver change because his car would have flitted in and out of existence. So I'm really not sure on what that one is, but it's certainly not scheduled, put it that way. Here's Custer and Rick Cohen. And more on what you were saying before, Jack, about sort of the battles going on now. It's fantastic, to be honest, because obviously right at the beginning of the race, when everybody's so close to each other, you don't want any big accidents that use everybody's fast repair, and it's just a bit of a mess. What you want is everybody to settle into their own little battles, and if they carry on like this for the next half an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 24 hours, then absolutely just put it on a plate so I can lap it up. It'll be my Sunday dinner when we come back to cover it tomorrow, because it's absolutely brilliant if we can see some of these battles continuing into the final stages of this races. The Simracersworld goes up the insides of Bud Boland, overtaking yet another car of Hujendorn in the DSCDA Esports red car.
Yeah, another good overtake from Bud Boland, definitely showing the other drivers out on track what his intentions are. However, look at that in the background, trying to get the position back, and that's what Bud Boland does. He tends to almost tag a mate with him. He brings somebody with him and overtakes the car of Danny Hugendorm that time, and he's gone, there you go, you can have Dimmy deals, because he was being hounded around the circuit by Dimmy. And now as soon as he's passed Danny Hugendorm, he's gone, there you go, you two can have a little fight. And look what he's done. He's done it perfectly. 1.1 seconds, 1.2 seconds to the good now, Bod Boland. He's just left him behind. It's a good little strategy from Bod. And as always, he's definitely showing what he's made of. Like I said, quali pace, he is there or thereabouts, but race pace is really where it shows. He's got the damage on that car. He could have been thrown out his rhythm, and just a little incident like that, not just physically to the car, mentally as well. Having that incident, it can put you down in the dumps for the first part of your stint until you get back in a rhythm. And it's not knocked him at all. He's still going around this circuit at an absolutely ballistic pace. Look at that, a 209.068. The car behind did a 212, so a very quick lap from Bod Boland, with of course traffic as well, trying to let by, I think that is the Roaring Chicken Nuggets machine, trying to work his way through. But I've got to say, Bod Boland, with what has been a very comfortable stint for him so far, obviously with that incident, but he's doing a great job carving his way up through the order. That is a car to watch out for as the race wears on.
Yeah, and who'd have known it? I thought you could just drive in circles in a NASCAR as we see him on a Monday night on Simracersworld, but he's certainly shown that in the GT3 he's a force to be reckoned with, and no wonder Simracersworld wanted him in their car. He's absolutely flying, so and providing great spectacle for us as well, and everybody watching at home as well, because often 24-hour races, you know, it's all about the consistency and just making sure you're in the right track position, you're doing well on your tyres. Bod Boland's just thinking, you know what, I'm just going to get through and then I'll deal with it. You know, after an hour, then we'll see what happens. But there's even more cars car through the traffic. This is back on with Louis Eggerson, who obviously was in a big battle just before with Max Denart, who is just been dropped a little bit as well. You can't quite see him in the shot. I think he's just coming up at the rear end there, but this is Demi Deals, who was a long way ahead of the likes of Bod Boland and Eggerson and Denart, and he's been reeled back in really quickly. So not sure what happened to Dimmy. Maybe he was a bit too hard on the tyres earlier on, early doors, or maybe a few of the other drivers who were quicker than him had a little bits of accidents and dropped behind him. But at the moment, he seems to be getting reeled in sooner rather than later, especially with the GTE cars flying around the outside.
Yeah, definitely battles up and down the order. This is one that we've seen, or that I've been keeping a little eye on, but this is for second in the GT3 class. Rene Dunn in the IRNL blue Mercedes, the 222, was almost under pressure there from Morgan Thompson and the CXR Project Black machine, but that little bit of LMP2 traffic has dropped him back out of that 1 second margin, and that just shows that traffic can massively shape your race. But of course Morgan Thompson has had to let the LMP2 by, so has Rene Dunn, and he's managed to let the LMP2 maybe by a little easier, because he's lost very little time. 1.2 seconds now. It was 1.4 come the start of the lap. So Morgan Thompson, he's catching slowly, but not quite as quickly as he would like. You can see the LMP2 car screaming by once again, and it's just traffic after traffic after traffic for these GT3s. But you've got to remember that while you're in a battle and you don't want to let them by, the other cars that are screaming by you are in a battle as well, and that's where it comes into sportsmanship. And if you give up a bit of time to let the car by, sometimes it might not work like this for some of the drivers, but sometimes that can almost play to your favour, because if you let the car by and then the car in front doesn't, the GTE, whether it just gets in front and slows down a little bit, helps you along, just little inter-team helpings out of positions throughout the race can play to your advantage. But then you've got to remember, it almost comes back to good karma and bad karma. If you let a load of cars by, towards the end of the race they might do something similar, but if you're just parking the bus and you're sitting in the middle of the road, sometimes that can come back to bite you and you can lose time as the race goes on. We've had an incident for Zander Kalt. What has happened here? This is the IRNL white Audi. Oh, he gets scooped up by the LMP2. He's trying to work his way through the S's, and for me, you've got to think the LMP2 driver has got to be at fault there, because the GT3 cannot carry the speed through there. It doesn't have the same aerodynamics as the LMP2, and as the LMP2 went through, maybe not quite expecting the GT3 to slow down as much and get scooped up, turned around, but the 213 is back out running.
Yeah, that's very fortunate indeed. And here is the IRNL white car just getting overtaken by the RNL GTE car. So the two liveries looking very smart. It has to be said, almost lining up for a photo. Very close to being So yeah, they're looking very good, but at the moment I'm sure they wouldn't like to be all the way in last place. They'll be fighting their way through the order. One person who really will feel like he's out of place after qualifying on pole position is a driver on your screen now, Vandenbrook, the trackside Wolfpack. We weren't quite sure what happened to him, the reason why he actually fell down the order. He's back up to 5th place though. He'll be doing, trying to do as well as he can to maintain the tyres, do a good stint, just get whatever happened out of his head to make sure he's potentially in the running come the end of the race. The last thing he wants to do is get hot-headed, cause an accident, and then end up in the pits to get any kind of slow stop. So Vandenbrook, he'll be an experienced driver, I'm sure, and he'll be up for the challenge.
Yeah, he will indeed. This is what caused your own Vandenbrook to drop back. He's gone into the pit lane, stopped in his pit box, and got back going in straight away. It was like almost a stop-go penalty for a very brief second. I'm not sure what happened. Pulled into his pit stop, stopped, and literally just left straight away again. Not sure what happened there, whether he jumped the start. He did have a vast lead on the way up to turn 1, and we know that there are rules in place to stop that from happening. All the LMP2s pouring into the pit lane now. Whether this is starting to turn into a race of strategy. There is Kevin de Waal screaming by the pit lane in the number 72 machine. There is Milan Tikens in the Project Dynamic machine. There is Jelle and Fredo Coleman also joins them in the pit lane. Doesn't look like they're up on the jacks as of yet. Possibly they are. We'll keep an eye on, but I don't think they will need to take tyres this early on in the race. You can stretch the tyres out very nicely. So whether it's just for fuel, I don't know, but we'll keep an eye on our leader, who is now 9.5 seconds to the good over Boudewijn Kuster, and we know that Boudewijn is very, very quick around here, obviously working his way from the bottom end of his class right the way back up to P2, and that gap, I think, might slowly be starting to come down, and that could be to do with traffic, of course, as well. But Aaron Taylor, he's looking good for the moment. We'll keep an eye on him to see whether he peels off into the pit lane. But it's been a dominating drive for him so far, although we are only, what, 40 minutes into the race, and there you go, peeling off into the pit lane. So it's that point where the LMP2s have got to start thinking about strategy, and they're slowly starting to come into the pit lane to take their first fuel stop.
Absolutely, and I've just had a little bit of a look on the Discord as well. Oh, a late pit entry by Kuster there as well, maybe reacting to the drivers ahead of him. Just having a look at the Discord for the Team Wolfpack car. Obviously, he was in the lead, as we were saying, right at the start, Vandenbrook. Actually, apparently, he accelerated. The reason why it was such a big gap at the very start going into turn 1 is because he accelerated outside the green acceleration zone that the steward said that was the earliest you could accelerate. He accelerated before that point, so therefore he got a black flag, so he had to do a drive-through penalty, which is why he was ended up further down the order. So it wasn't anything to do with like a spin or anything like that, no damage on the car. It was just the fact that he accelerated too soon and broke a ball.
Yeah, you've got to respect that though. Just a little mistake like that. It did put him in a very nice position, obviously starting on pole, but however that might hurt his race as we go deeper and deeper into the 24 hours. A few drivers still yet to pit. Top 3 as it stands haven't pitted. Aaron Taylor has left the pit lane now. 4th place respectively, but is in theory in the lead after all is said and done with the pit stops. There is Kevin de Waal in the Stage 1 Racing Junior number 72 Delara LMP2. There is Joris Blom in the number 77 machine, who is hounding Perry Oosterhoven around the circuit of the Americas through the tight left-hand hairpin onto the back straight, and I think the top 3 this lap. If it's not this lap, I've got a feeling they're going to run out of fuel, but they're going to be left with very little fuel from the end of the lap. So this is something we need to keep an eye on as well. What I want to do quickly is just bring up the dashboard just to show you the speeds that these drivers reach. Almost 300 kilometers an hour before the braking zone, just 220 kilometers shy of that 300 kilometer mark, and that's getting close to almost Formula 1 speeds. And that just shows how quick these cars are, even with the vast amounts of downforce that they've got. They are very, very quick in a straight line, and the downforce then helps them get through a corner. So they really are a purebred racing car, and it's definitely being shown, notably, by Boudewijn Kuster. He's showing us how to drive these LMP2s.
Absolutely, yeah. They're quite difficult / easy to drive at the same time. They're an odd car, really. If you really want to get the maximum out of them, as these drivers are, then they really can be very tricky. Whereas compared to a GTE car, I would say if you're a casual driver, then actually the Lmp2 cars are slightly easier. You just won't be potentially going as close to the pros as you might end up going to the GTEs or GT3s. A couple of drivers, obviously those top three, have now all entered the pit lane. So the Aaron Taylor in the CXR Project Black car will probably end up retaking the race lead. Marcus Goebel here, going past a few of the GTE cars and very close to the COTA Academy car of Jensen DeLue. And is that looking up the inside? Big lock up there into the apex, and that could have been a big incident, a big accident there, but luckily he gets away with it.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure how he managed to get that car slowed down. Locked up all fours, I think definitely the front two tyres locked up, so that will massively hurt his tyre life. Did a good job though of making sure he didn't cause an incident. That was, who was that he was trying to get by? That was Jensen DeLue for COTA Academy. Did a good job of almost reading the situation as well. Gave himself a bit more room on the apex just to allow for the .exe Esports car to make the corner still. Some good sportsmanship driving throughout. Still David Plasman leading the way in the GTE class, but as you pointed out earlier, another .exe machine is still sat there in second place. This is Dennis Neidhart, 1.5 seconds the gap, so one small mistake from our leader could drop Dennis back up towards the lead and possibly to take the lead of the class. And that's all it takes: one missed apex, a slight spin, a quick turn on of traction control coming out of that left-hand hairpin. It can cost you so much going onto the straight, and we know a little almost time loss at the start could almost triple itself come the end of the straight, and that's all it takes. So Dennis Neidhart possibly playing it safe at the moment, but David Plasman, the man with the pressure on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good example, as you were saying, given all the statistics and everything, of how much it can influence the drivers. But yeah, the .export, I reckon he's doing a pretty good job here at the moment, Dennis Neidhart in the Ford. I just like the fact that he's gone for something, a slightly different machinery than all the Porsches that are out there in the GTE class as well. But it's actually a Porsche first place, Ford second, and Ferrari in third at the moment. So the Roaring Chicken Nuggets car is actually in third place, and there we go. Probably one of the easiest cars to spot and one of the easiest teams to remember as well. I mean, it's you always do love it when a team name has a little bit of a sense of humour, and Johan Bartlett and his teammates have certainly put that on, put their sort of stamp on their team here.
They really have, and like you say, it's just great to see that as much as the drivers and everybody involved wants to take it seriously, it can be taken very seriously. It can be a serious event, and I know a lot of the drivers and a lot of the teams are with all of these practice sessions and the setup work. By all means, you can just sit there practice for what could be like just a little fun event, but I know some of these drivers, some of the teams are taking it properly seriously, and to bring that little bit of sense of humour brings the paddock almost down to earth a little bit. You think, yeah, that's as much as we want to take it seriously, it is still, we are all here for the same reason. We love sim racing, and we are all here just to have a laugh. As much as a great result would be nice, just to spend time with your mates and with your other drivers and whatnot, just to tear a car around the COTA circuit for 24 hours is a laugh. I saw a massive amount of tyre smoke at turn 1. I'm not sure who that was that managed to find the limit of their braking performance. Nothing's popped up on the times. We've had an incident for Austin Foster. Don't think this was the one. No, this is going down in towards the hairpin. There's a GT in front. Please don't make contact. Has a massive look up the inside. Late on the brakes, locks up, over rotates the car, kisses the GTE, and manages to get pointing the right way again. And that's just a little mistake. Doesn't look like much on the face of it, but that could be what, 5-6 seconds lost at the most important part of the circuit, going onto the back straight. So the sort of 5 seconds lost at the start of the straight could be about 10 from the end of it.
Yeah, not ideal in the slightest for him there, but yeah, he's a quick driver. I'm sure he'll get away with it. Come, with a couple of hours in, he'll make up that time. Oh, here we go. Here's a nice little battle to have to peel your eyes on. Vandenbrook with the trackside Wolfpack car, and Leonard Ziegler in the Bazinga Motorsport cars. Up the inside goes the Wolfpack, and looks like he's going to try and lead, as Wolfpacks do, into the top 4, but potentially he's got a bit of a problem with Ziegler in just behind as well. He's looking to go side by side with him onto the main straight, and it's going to be last of the late breakers. Vandenberg's on the inside. He could potentially have the apex to him as the cars dip their nose down under braking. It is going to be the Wolfpack car just staying ahead unless there's a bit of a cutback on. No, I don't think there's enough there as they're coming into the right-hand apex, and it's the move done by Joran Vandenbrook.
Yeah, good little move there, and it's position made for the moment. However, still Leonard Ziegler carrying him around the circuit, putting the pressure on with the GTE traffic behind as well. So it's all to do in the GT3 category. We've got Max BWS in the chat saying best livery is the number 14, the number 121 and the number 116. So let's have a look through them for you. That is Fredo Klopman in the Team DRC orange machine. I am a fan of that livery. It looks very aggressive at the front, quite garish with the black and with the orange flashes, very Simracersworld-esque. So I'm sure myself and Jacko can get behind that one. The number 121, another one you mentioned. We'll try and find that for you. Can't seem to find it. There we go. Perry Pinkman in the Team DRC. I'm seeing a bit of a trend here. Are you a Team DRC fan, Max? It does seem that way. And what's the other one? The number 116. Let's have a look. Oh, it's Team DRC Blue. Yeah, I think he might be a DRC driver or a DRC fan, possibly. Yeah,
to be fair, they are smart-looking cars, though. I do enjoy the fact that each of them have a little bit of a different signature to them. The orange one that we saw at the beginning, the number 14 car, I think Fredo Kuhlmann, actually it sort of reminded me a little bit of a Ginetta, if anybody's ever heard of them. If you're into the top WC, you probably will have done at some point. But the Ginetta's Lmp2 car looking very similar to the DRC car there. So, yeah, it is very smart, to be fair. It's a good shout-out.
Yeah, I am a massive fan of the DRC liveries. Like you say, they all look very similar on first glance, but the extra little flashes, the extra little attentions to detail is what I really like. I know that Chaz Draycott, if he's watching along, one of our fellow commentators, is a massive fan of a livery with a spec map. I think we had one further back. Who actually, let's go for the one that we've pointed out a lot. I'm sure Chaz will love that because it's got the attention to detail. It's got the spec map with the matte finish on the black at the tail end of the car, so I'm sure Chaz will be a fan of that. And you might hear us referring to spec maps, and that's just changing the finish of the paint. It could be chrome, as we've seen on Jelle Bielan's. No, his livery hasn't loaded. I will try and get that fixed, like I say, as it goes on. I think Joris Blom, there you go, with the chrome finish on his Next Level Racing LMP2 machine. But yeah, the liveries really do add a sense of, or add a personal touch to the grid for the teams, and it's almost extra motivation as well. And I think that is what's willing some of these drivers on, knowing that you've got possibly sponsors to impress, or you've got a personal touch on the livery while you're in a car that you're comfortable with, you're with all your mates, and you've got the setup dialed in, and you've got that livery on the car. It almost adds pretty much a club level feel to what is quite a big event for some of these drivers.
Absolutely, yeah, and obviously some of these people will actually have got designers in just to design their team liveries, which is absolutely awesome, as Austin Foster looks like he's being overtaken by the Project Dynamic car, number 18. I think that's Deacons, yeah, the Project Dynamic cars. So the LMP cars actually have a real good battle here. After just talking about that livery, we'll come back to it in a second. And it's a big move by Deacons to take two cars over the course of about half a straight. A really good run he must have got out the hairpin. The 84 car of Jensen DeLue, the Kart Academy car, is now got his, well, he's probably having a look at his rear view mirrors because all of a sudden Austin Foster's behind, and we know how quick Foster is. So these LMP cars really, really very sort of tight. And you're right with the liveries. I mean, it does add a sort of camaraderie, a sense of community with each of them, and it's another opportunity to put that personal touch, like the Chicken Nuggets car, a little bit of humour, a little bit of personality, a little bit of your stamp on the race, and especially if it's getting broadcast by the likes of us or any organisation, it's always fantastic to have that sort of opportunity to really show off your team and your sponsors and everything else. So yeah, they're looking awesome, guys. Congratulations.
Absolutely. You can tell a lot of the teams have put in the effort, pretty much all of the teams have put in the effort to get these liveries made and to show them off. Closest cars we've got out on the circuit, except from the battle we were just looking at. This is Morgan Thompson chasing down René Duren in the IRNL blue machine, and then up the road back up to the LMP2 cars we've got once again Budwig Custer trying to pick off what for him is just another car really, and he's got the position made in towards the left-hander and position secured once he's on the apex. A bit of traffic to negotiate up the inside, very well read from Budwig Custer and Fredo Koeman behind. We've had a change of position for P2, I think, as well. Yes, that's Nick Foster now in front of Rick Cohen. I fear that Rick Cohen has had an incident. Let's see.
Yeah, it looks like he was pulling off very slowly by the looks of it.
Yeah, so Rick Cohen through the tight, twisty section of the circuit. Does he have a lock-up? Over he takes the car on the way in sideways, and then it just slingshots its way around 90 degrees to the track, and Rick Cohen loses out there. I think that's just a slight mistake under pressure. It's got all the signs of that. You've got a car chasing you down. Look in your rearview mirror just before the braking zone. Maybe get slightly shocked by the by how quickly the apex is approaching in these LMP2 cars, and just a slight little mistake. That's all it costs, and that's all it takes, and it's cost him pretty much twofold there, because Nick Foster, he's not just gained any position, he's gained second place in class. And we know what Nick Foster's like. He's a very quick driver, otherwise he wouldn't be right the way up towards the pointy end of his class.
Yeah, I think Austin Foster's actually had a bit of an incident as well. I think he maybe got a black flag, maybe a drive-through or something. He seems to have dropped down the LMP order now. He's in 11th place or 12th place, I believe. So, yeah, the Foster's really been in the wars at the moment. But here is obviously Nick, and doing a really good job. But I have to say, a driver that we haven't mentioned very much in the past half an hour or so is Aaron Taylor, because he's been by far and away the class of not only the LMPs, but really the class of everyone. He's dominating his class like no one else really is at the moment. And I think he's got a 20-second gap. He does indeed, 20-second gap between himself and Nick Foster, which is a gap that he'll be very happy to maintain. Just keeping the tyres nice and fresh, maintaining everything about the car, keeping an eye on the fuel, keeping his teammates up to date with everything, how the car's feeling. And he'll be the happiest man out there. You always are the happiest man out there if you're the person actually leading. But in a 24-hour race, to be dominating at such an early stage, it can be wiped out quite quickly and quite easily, but they'll be calm, they'll be collected, and they'll be very much looking forward to the next 23 hours.
They will be indeed. And we've had an incident for Tom Vandenbrook. What has happened here? Coming out of the pit lane in the IRNL blue, outbraking himself a little bit. Does he touch the... Oh, very close. That's our GTE leader. That's Plasman that he's gone into the side of, I think. Let's just have another quick look back. I think he might have just touched the AstroTurf. What do you think, Jacko?
Yeah, he looks like he just went... Oh, I'm not really sure. I think he just really aggressively tried to come back onto the circuit. There doesn't seem to be any sort of unsettling the car or anything in the car's body language that made me think it snapped on or anything. I think he just went far too hot into the first corner, coming out of the pit lane on cold tyres potentially, on the dirty side of the track, and he just overestimated it, and as he was trying to rejoin the track, he didn't look for long enough. He probably should have just blended in nicely, but yeah, hopefully Plasman's car is not damaged. Obviously, otherwise Neidhart will be, who we're on board with now, will be chasing them down really rather quicker than we expected.
Yeah, that gap has come down quite drastically since that incident. Half a second separating the GTE leaders. David Plasman still in the lead for Sim Control's Volante Esports, but Dennis Neidhart is there and he is within draft range. At this point, going for the lead, is it advisable? I don't know. It's really the team's call. You could go for it and hope that you can extend that gap, or you could just sit behind, maybe pressure him into a mistake. It's easier to do that while you're saving a bit of fuel. If the mistake doesn't come, what's the worst thing that can happen? You've saved a bit of fuel and you know you're on pace with the leader. There's nothing really bad about just sitting behind at this stage in the race. We're very quickly closing up on the 1 hour mark of the race. The leader, Aaron Taylor, has completed 29 laps and is heading on to his 30th lap in a few moments time. There we go, ticking on to lap 30 now. But the few little mistakes that we've seen, we've not really seen any major incidents. We've seen obviously cars coming together, but it's nice to see that even with these incidents, it's not like it's put a car out the race. They've just gone back to the pit lane, maybe got the repairs that they need, or they're just sort of limping the car around, hoping that if they can still lap consistently, they can continue on. And that's one thing that we're seeing here. Dennis Neidhart, he wants to lap consistently, but the traffic's got in the way a slight bit through no fault of his own, of course, and it's dropped him back to the leader now. 1.4 seconds is the gap, so it shows that traffic and little mistakes can massively shape your race.
Yeah, you'd like to think that, as you were saying before, Jack, about karma, you know, what takes away comes back to you in the end, but it really is just pure pot luck about where you catch the drivers around you. I mean, if you were Aaron Taylor, obviously he just flew past them. He seems to be flying past everybody around, and Nick Foster was as well. But yeah, a little bit of COTA just behind. Here is Pacheco, just at the back end of the GTE class. They're having their own little fight though with the likes of Neidhart in the next level racing GTE car as well, in the chromed out green and yellow car, looking very smart, it has to be said, just like the other classes. Yeah, a little bit of the flash of the lights, and the Porsche just behind Pacheco looks a little bit more like the sort of classic racing Porsches that we've seen, you know, the actual branded Porsches that we've seen just before. But yeah, it's a good little battle wherever you look on the circuit at the moment, whether it's in the GT3, GTEs, LMPs, and whether it's the front of those respective grids or right at the back as he's looking up the inside. Pacheco decides to not have a go this time around, a little bit too far back. Let's see if he can get the cut back and really put the power down now, maybe use the slipstream to his advantage.
Yeah, it looks like he's tucking himself underneath the rear wing of Naya in front. Pacheco, the one that will decide what he does here, looks to the inside, throws the car over to the left-hand side of the circuit. Like you say earlier, it's last of the late breakers. This time Naya later on the brakes, and Pacheco, being very conservative with his moves, decides just to sit back and reassess the situation, decide whether it's worth going for, and that shows a driver that is not just wanting to go for positions, he's thinking about the long term, he's thinking about if he makes this move now, how will it affect him in 3, 4, 5 laps time, and then when he hands the car over, what will he be able to, what can he do to extend that gap and put his teammate in the best position once he swaps with his fellow driver. So clever driving from Pacheco, still within obviously that crucial 1 second margin to get that draft assistance. We've got a car peeling his way off into the pit lane. That is the trackside Wolfpack machine heading in. Obviously he's already had the stop-go penalty for jumping the start. Just gone past his pit box there. I think he might have to grab reverse. No, just managed to stay in. Oh, he does have to grab reverse. I did think he was a little bit too far. Stops the car. Does he hand over the car? Your own Vandenbrook in the car at the moment. We've had an incident for Pacheco. Let's hope that this shows up. We'll try and get it back to the replay. And I think this is the incident. What happens here? The run up towards turn 1. Oh, sideways on the way in, trying to avoid the car ahead. Locks up and just stops. Grabs reverse of all things. I thought he would have carried on onto the AstroTurf, maybe trying to stop himself from getting an off track. Quite an odd incident there, but once again clever driving. Probably not the best driving, but he did sort of think, actually, hang on a minute, I don't want an off track, let's stop it here, and it might help us towards the end of the race.
Yeah, well, the off tracks, it's an interesting thing. It's actually what caused the technical issues that we had at the beginning of the race, and the reason why we started slightly late, because you get 130 X's, and what that means basically is every time you do an off track, you get a 1X. So it might sound like a lot, you know, 130 off tracks basically, but an off track can be really, really rather minor, especially around certain corners and certain aspects. And another 1X might be a little bit of contact or a little bit of rubbing or something like that. So there's a whole host of things that can cause a 1X. And after that, every 20 on 130 X's, you get I think it's a stop-go penalty, and every 20 X's after that, you get another stop-go penalty. So for 24 hours of racing, although 130 X's sounds like a lot, for 24 hours, it's realistically not, and it all does stack on your team as well. It's not just the driver, so Pacheco might be trying to avoid an off-track for his team rather than just one driver. So, yeah, as you said, maybe smart driving, but it was a bit of an odd incident in the first place.
Yeah, it was very deep on the brakes, and here he is once again approaching the car that affected him on the lap prior. Gonna get past him on the straight this time. It is, that's something we haven't really mentioned as well. Although the GTEs, in theory, they are quicker, and you can see there they are quicker just about coming out the corners. When you are on the longer straights, you can see that gap doesn't really extend to the margin it did on the corner exit. So while the GTEs, they have got maybe an extra bit of power, they do have the extra aerodynamics as well, so that therefore increases the drag. So at some circuits, the GT3s can be much quicker on the straights. So the GTEs have got to bear that in mind. The LMP2s, you can see there, no matter where they are on the track, they just go screaming by. They've got the power to get by on the straight. They've got the aerodynamics to get past in the corners. They are pretty much the perfect car for this circuit. However, it's the GTEs and the GT3s. I think that's where we may see a few inter-class incidents that just start to catch a few drivers out in towards the night, and then heading into the early hours of the morning when the drivers are a bit weary. They're maybe not quite as hot on their mirrors. They can't keep up with the speeds of each other. And that's something we haven't really mentioned as well, closing speeds. Although the LMP2s, they make it look easy to tear by each other, sometimes if you're unsighted in an LMP2 by a GT3, that can very quickly cause quite a big incident.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know from track days and testing in real life, the LMPs are almost like little radicals, and the fact that they're very quite low to the ground there. The closing speed is enormous, and all of a sudden you don't think there's anything behind you, and all of a sudden there's an LMP car just up at the inside. So it is really important to always be aware, and as you said, the closing speed between the likes of the LMP and the GT3 class is about 20 seconds per lap. So although there's only 10 seconds per lap between the LMP and the GTE, and the GTE to the GT3, the difference between the LMP and the GT3 is enormous. So like you said, Jack, they have a superior power out the corner. Their aerodynamics is second to none compared to a lot of other GT World Racing. So yeah, that's really where the strongest point is, definitely through the sort of twisty stuff. But they do have just about enough engine power to make sure they're getting past the GTEs as well.
Yeah, it's definitely something that the drivers need to stay familiar with, making sure that they're hot on the mirrors, but also keeping an eye in front as well, because if you're a GTE, you have got a very busy race ahead of you, because you've got to make sure you can negotiate GT3 traffic quickly and cleanly, but also make sure that you make it not necessarily easy, but you'll make yourself as a driver very readable, very predictable for the LMP2 to get by. Looking at Arjun van Grol head into the pit lane, Elroy Timmer has now taken over in the Next Level Racing 106 Porsche. We were looking at a little interclass or an inter-team battle, however, Leslie Vandenbrook has continued on. Kevin Ung still our GT3 leader, heading through the that's the left-hander at the hairpin, just going on to the long back straight, having led an LMP2 car by, and it's got to the point in the race where it's slowly starting to calm down. The battles are few and far between at this point. However, David Plasman, our GTE leader, is now in the pit lane, so it now hands over the reins to Dennis Neidhart in the .exe Esports family Ford GT, now leading the class. He needs an absolute monster of an in-lap if he wants to stay in front of David Plasman.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a flyer. I mean, as well as obviously Plasman's going to have a little bit of an undercut as well. He's going to come out on fresher tyres if he is swapping the tyres, which we sort of assume he is, unless he's double stacking to save a little bit of time himself. And Neidhart, he's going to know that this is his opportunity, to really put his mark on and take that class lead away from his rival. But as we were saying before, it's not the end of the world if he ends up hunkering up behind Plasman for a few more laps, maybe even like half an hour to an hour more, just making sure that he's the one punching the air out of the way. He's the one who's having to think about where he's going to put the lines. He's the one who's having to go through the traffic first. Just takes a little bit of pressure off you as the second place car, and you can sort of like just get into the groove, following the car in front, using all their sort of their cues to make sure you're hitting the right braking zones, you're going in through the corner, clean on the power, all that sort of thing. It can just calm you down a little bit by following. It's always easier to follow than to be followed.
Absolutely. You see there Dennis Neidhart pushing the limits of that 4GT, just getting slightly sideways coming out the hairpin. And yeah, I agree with you, it's so easy, just, well, not easy, but it takes the pressure off just following the car. Make sure you don't follow too closely, because if the lead car makes a mistake, you could follow them and make pretty much exactly the same mistake. But it does mean obviously you save fuel. You're not the one that has got to decide where you go with traffic. 9 times out of 10, the lead car, he goes for the gap to try and get past some traffic. You can follow through the same gap. Sometimes that's not always the case. But Dennis Neidhart, what is he going to do? Is he going to throw the car over to the left-hand side? Not this time by, but this is something that we can apply prior knowledge to, Jacko. In the Simracersworld GT Pro and GT Evo series powered by Porsche Sport, that we know that the 4GT is one of the most economical GTE cars. And as it stands, Dennis Neidhart still hasn't been into the pits at all this race, and he's continued on once again to complete another lap. So it could be the 4GT, and its very economical way of running. It might just keep him in front.
Yeah, it's a good sort of thing to note that as well, to be fair, because we've had the first round of pit stops roughly starting to take shape now. Obviously, the LMPs came in at about 40 minutes gone. The GTEs are starting to bleed in at 60 minutes, as well as the GT3s. So by the looks of it, the two GT classes are sort of very similar with how they treat the car, how they treat the fuel and the tyres. As you can see, Morgan Thompson coming out now, and a whole host of other GT3 cars in the pits, basically. So after 60 minutes, basically pretty much bang on the hour, we'll expect to see the GT3 cars come in. By the looks of it, there's a little bit more variation to be going with in the GTE category. Like you said, the Ford maybe is just a touch better on the fuel consumption than a few of the other cars. And if he was also hunkered up behind the car ahead of Plasman, then he will have had the opportunity to fuel save as well already. So he's going to definitely be in a good position. He'll be feeling confident. Just let the LMP2 cars get past to make sure they don't scupper his time too much. And yeah, we'll see him in the next couple of laps potentially diving into the pits, and we'll see where he comes out at, but I think he'll be in a good position.
Yeah, it looks like for the moment that Dennis Neidhart has done everything he needs to do on these few in-laps. He's managed to let the LMP2 cars by as quickly and as cleanly as possible. There is Jeroen Vatler behind the wheel of the Roaring Chicken Nuggets number 142 machine. That was Boudewijn Kuster. We saw get past Dennis Neidhart without too much of an issue. Boudewijn Kuster now back up into P2. What does Dennis do this time by? There we go, into the pit lane. Managed to stretch his tank for an extra, what, 10.5 kilometers, because it's almost a 5.2, 5.3 kilometer rotation of the Circuit of the Americas. And that shows, yeah, like you say, he's just sat behind, saving a bit of fuel in what is already a very economical car. Dennis Neidhart has managed to save a bit of fuel. The man we need to watch then is David Plasman, just gone down the very long back straight, now weaving his way through the tight and twisty bit, and just looking through the body language of that car, he's definitely pushing hard on the brakes, throwing the car into all of the corners. And I think David Plasman knows the score here. He knows what he needs to do, and it looks like he's being very aggressive, which sometimes can work for you. You can gain the time required. Just make sure you rein it in afterwards, because if you remain aggressive, you can start to overdrive the car, overstress the car as well, of course, and overheat the tyres, and at that point it just starts to slow you down and you lose more than you gain. But as it stands, David Plasman is still on the go for the lead, though, through the final corner. Dennis Neidhart, he's leaving the pit lane now. This is going to be very close. There is David Plasman charging over the line now. There is Dennis Neidhart, and I think if David can carry the momentum up the hill, he will stay in position. However, Dennis Neidhart remains in the lead, just about, though. 3 seconds to the good on what is quite a long circuit isn't that much of an advantage. But when you think how he's done it, with fuel saving and a little bit of strategy, that is quite a big gap to have gained in the pit stop. Dennis Neidhart now in the lead of the GTE class.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, after the next round of pit stops in about an hour's time, he potentially could do a similar style strategy, maybe not getting quite as much in the way of fuel advantage, being the fact that he isn't now in the lead of his category, rather than hunkered up behind Plasman. But yeah, it could be a gain of a net gain of about 15 kilometers of fuel gaining, and if he can just keep that up, he'll be in a really good position to maybe push the Porsche to its absolute limits. And Plasman will have to be driving it like he's on the ragged edge for quite a long time during this race, and he'll be really, ruining his tyres by doing that. I have to say though, like when we cut to Plasman though, his car seemed absolutely on it, didn't it? It looked nice and planted. It clearly goes to the gym, because it's absolutely squatting down right now, and it's what we love to see as well. One of these Porsche GTE cars really attacking the circuit. Look at the lack of dip at his car as he hits the brakes. It's so flat, it's so stable, and these cars don't have ABS or anything. The GTEs are hard to drive, and that's there we go. Just locking up is Plasman, really pushing the car as much as he can. And as I say that he doesn't have any ABS, he proves that instantly.
Yeah, you can see that although it looks like quite an easy car to drive on the face of it, obviously with the lack of driver aids, it can very quickly become a very difficult car to drive. Specifically this Porsche, with it being obviously mid-engine, basically rear engine, is so far back. They did have to make room for that massive rear diffuser. You'll see if you look below the rear bumper, the huge rear diffuser behind, which helps so much with the aerodynamics of that car. They put it in there, and then they had to move the engine further forward purely to make room for it. It shows that Porsche, they don't just go, oh, we'll put a big engine in it and let aerodynamics do their thing. No, they focus on aerodynamics. They want a car that handles amazing, and then move the engine as to where it can fit. And they've produced an absolutely amazing piece of kit, and you can see David Plasman's really started to find the sweet spot in that car. He's brought the gap down from 3 seconds to 2.3 now, so he is slowly starting to reel Dennis Neidhart in, but he could almost flip the strategy completely, because if David Plasman just sits behind that very economical Ford, that net gain of what do you say, 15 kilometers coming into the next pit stop strategy, David Plasman could slowly start to reel that in if he just sits back and saves the fuel like you mentioned. We do have cars battling away further back, though. Once again, it's two Mercedes in the GT3 class, and once again it is the Project Dynamic 2 machine. This is Will Edgeby in the 218, being hounded through the first section of the circuit by Chi van Walkum, and it looks like for the moment he's slowly starting to drop back. He was very, very close going through the S's, and maybe that is something to do with strategy, slightly more aerodynamic, or slightly more in the way of aerodynamics for the number 283, and then as soon as you get onto the straights, it just slows him down.
Yeah, he looked like he was a little bit going a little bit loosey-goosey on the exit of that corner as well. Just a little bit too much power maybe coming out of it. The GT3 cars do have traction control, unlike I think the GTE cars. But obviously you can reduce that all the way down. You can still get sideways and very sideways and completely the wrong way. It looks like Vandenbrook. Let's see what happened to him. He's clearly not really had as much consistency as he would like, and he just seems to lose it as he's coming over the crest of the left-hander. Luckily, he avoids the Porsche. Just about avoids him, but the Wolfpack car really, you know, he was very quick in qualified on pole position, and he's had a bit of a mare since then, to be honest. He's still in second place in his class, but realistically, you would be hoping that he's ahead, and here goes Neidhart just up the inside in the fourth.
Yeah, so once again, another little mistake which can cost him very, very dearly. The gap to Dennis Neidhart from David Plasman remains at about 2.3 seconds now. We've still got the LMP2s peeling off into the pit lane. Rick Cohen the first, and then Milan Tikens for Project Dynamic also in the pit lane. I think when we saw the incident with Jeroen Vandenbrook, he was in second place. He still remains in second place, but great avoidance driving from, I think it was Elroy Timmer, who just about managed to avoid the rotating Mercedes, and that's something you've got to keep an eye out for as well. I know this is a very busy race, and we've said it so much. You've got to think about traffic, you've got to think about strategy, how the track develops, of course. It rubbers in, but it might get hotter, it might get colder going into the night, of course, and then you've got to adapt your driving style for that. But then you've also got to keep an eye out for spinning cars and little mistakes that some of the drivers make. And with this being an unlit circuit, if a car's sideways, you're not going to see headlights, you're not going to see tail lights, you might just about see the number board, and the only thing you've got to rely on are your headlights. That is the only thing that you can really see a sideways car with, and at that point you've got very little time with the closing speeds to avoid that. That was very close to the tail end with Arjen van Gogh. I think you had a similar reaction to me, Jack. I thought Arjen might have just collected the tail end of Elroy Timmer, but once again he made the mistake, but then thought, I'm not just going to still go for the corner, I'm going to make sure I'm nice and clear of the Porsche in front, and then I've got the time to get back.
Yeah, I was taking a little drink there actually and almost choked on it. I thought he was going straight into the back of the Porsche, but as I said, luckily he was just about got away with it. But it's very close, and it's great to see these sort of tight battles still going on even after the first round of pit stops. You know, it can often sort of separate a lot of the cars, as we've seen a few of the battles been broken up by the fact that, you know, they're on different pit strategies, or they've just been hit by traffic or XYZ. There's a million other reasons why, but it's brilliant to see that they're still developing, and the Ferrari and the Porsche rivalry really heating up here, even if it is at the back of the field for the GTE class. The IRNL orange car currently leading the IRNL black car actually in the GTE category, but obviously the next level is, as you said before, getting a little bit hounded here by the car behind, the Netherlands car behind, and we'll see how this battle develops over the course of the time.
Yeah, it looks like the race is quickly starting to develop. A few battles that we haven't really noticed slowly starting to crop up as the race wears on. LMP2 traffic once again playing a part in another class's battle. This is Jeroen Vandenbrook under pressure from Morgan Thompson in the CXR Project Black. Another amazing livery that we've seen. More specifically though, that livery, it looks amazing on the Audi, but it looks even better, in my opinion, on the lead car, Aaron Taylor. 24 seconds, basically 25 seconds now to the good over his PM Esports rival of Boudewijn Kuster. You saw him there just passing Dennis Neidhart, and that was our GTE leader. And speaking of our GTE leader, he's starting to extend that gap once again. You can see David Plasman in the background, but 2.8 seconds now for Dennis Neidhart. So like you say, if he was on fresh rubber, was David Plasman, he might have used it up trying to catch back up to Dennis Neidhart. Like I said, he could be, might be overdriving the car. It did look very planted, but like I said, that could be very aggressive on the tyres and might not play to his strengths. Now 3 seconds back to David Plasman. That could be a bit of traffic slowly starting to play a part, but at this point you've got to think, did David Plasman maybe overdrive the car trying to minimise that lost time, or is it just something that Dennis Neidhart has done as he got back in the groove, as he got maybe a couple of extra tenths here and there, and he's just really starting to pay dividend?
Yeah, well, it's all those sort of things that he's going to have to ask himself, and the team's going to have to try and figure out a way of potentially bringing Neidhart back to them in terms of strategy, as he's weaving the car a little bit there by the looks of it. But it's going to be very interesting to see as we go throughout the night. And actually, the light is starting to dim down, by the looks of it, on iRacing. So we're starting to see the headlights come out now. And I reckon before we're even done here, Jack, we're going to be having a bit of a night race as before we hand over to Hasse and Ed for the second stint of the second 4-hour stint of comms. But yeah, we're going to have a bit of a night. Really throw some fireworks up there, isn't it? Because as you said before, there is no sort of track lighting. It's all to do with the headlights, and like you said before as well, with if you're coming up to the back of cars with their sort of rear headlights on, the LEDs on, and everything like that. All of a sudden, a car is turned around in front of you on the exit, and all of a sudden you come around the corner and you see headlights looking straight at you. It could be the worst, probably the most heart-sinking feeling you could potentially have in a 24-hour race.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a few moments myself on the iRacing official Le Mans 24 Hours where I've been going through the Porsche curves, and there's just a car pointing sideways, and at that point you've got to be fully committed to the Porsche curves. There's no real room for error. When you've got a car sideways in the middle of the track, you've got a split second to decide. Thankfully, through pure luck, I think, there's no driving skill involved. I managed to avoid the car. But like you say, it's really something that you've got to take with a pinch of salt. That is just part of endurance racing. A little lock up there from David Plassman, so you can see he's still pushing the limits. But there's so many different aspects of endurance racing. You've got to make sure you remember going into these races, because if you forget one of them at any point and you just maybe get slightly too relaxed throughout your race, obviously by all means just chill out, get into your groove and just drive lap after lap after lap. But if at any point you start to almost get too confident behind the wheel, it will really come back and bite you, and that's when the mistakes start to come at the most important parts of the races that you take part in, specifically endurance races. Like we said, just a little mistake here and there, it might not look like much on the face of it, but it can add up so quickly over a 24-hour race. I'm just looking through, this is probably the closest battle we've got going on. Another beautiful livery, that .exe machine under pressure here from Perry Ustrova in the Apex Racing team. Has a look up to the outside very late on the brakes. I think that was a slight bit of avoidance driving. Marcus Gorbel does get the Apex, still remains in 7th place. However, Perry Ustrova still there in the Apex Racing team, number 11 machine. He does have the draft assistance on the run up towards the left-hander at the end of the straight. What happens here? Nothing major, and once again we've seen a battle very quickly accelerate towards what could have become an incident. Once again we've seen it slowly start to settle down again, and I bet if we look back in a couple more laps they're still going to be nose to tail and just sort of vying for position.
Yeah, that's what we hope as he flies to the outside. The problem is with the GT3 cars ahead, it's very difficult, as the .exe Esports team had to have a little bit of a lockup to make sure he wasn't going into the back of the Mercedes, and around the outside goes the Apex Racing team car, the number 11 car, and that position has now been swapped with a flash of the lights. I'm not entirely sure what that's for, whether it's for the cameras to say hello, or if it's to do with any of his teammates. But it's an interesting point that you came up before, Jack, because obviously I haven't really been involved in any kind of endurance racing, even sim endurance racing. When it comes to, obviously, you do your stints and there's a couple of hours at night. Do you actually manage to get any sleep on a 24-hour race, or are you sort of still hooked and still buzzing about what the team's up to, even when you're on your downtime?
I think for a lot of it, you've really just go into it without really knowing how much sleep you're going to get. I've done Daytona on 4 drivers, of which I did sleep. It was very hard to get to sleep because my PC and everything is in my bedroom, so I can literally just roll over and have a look and see what's going on, and just the temptation of seeing how your team's getting on in this amazing event. It's just so much, you can't quite get to sleep as easily as you'd expect. But then I did Le Mans on 3 drivers, of which very little sleep was gained. Probably about an hour throughout the entire event was gained for me there. But yeah, it's something that you think, oh, it's just virtual racing cars driving around a virtual circuit, and it looks like a little bit more than that at the moment for the Stage 1 racing machine. It is Kevin De Waal in now what has become 5th position. It was just about swapping over going into the braking zone, and Nick Foster for Apex Hunters United LMP2 has managed to work his way up into 4th position. An easy move for him, had the draft assistance going down the straight, and there you go, position made. But back to your earlier point, Jacko, yeah, it's a weird one, because you want to sleep, you know you've got to sleep, because you want to be at the top of your game when you get back in the car, but it's just the temptation of having a look at how your team's getting on, because for the people that maybe aren't as into sim racing as some of us, they think, oh, you just sat driving around in circles, but it means so much more. You might not want to take it seriously, but you can't fight the temptation to go, this means a lot. This is like my team with my mates, and we're driving for 24 hours. We've all grouped together. We've all put in the time, and when you put in that time beforehand, it means so much more. And yeah, it's sleep for these guys. I think it's going to be few and far between because we've got drivers from all around the world driving in 3 different classes. You've got to be so on it, and it's such a busy event for maybe if you're not driving, but if you're like a team manager, maybe you're somebody sat in the background working with strategy. It's a busy event, and I don't think there's going to be much time for sleep for anybody.
Yeah, it's a fascinating insight, really, isn't it? Because as I said, I'm not someone who's ever really participated in any of these sort of endurance motorsport events. Mainly because I don't trust myself. I just know that I'd be that guy who ended up, that sinking feeling as you're going through, maybe trying to charge through some traffic in like the 6th or 7th hour in, or even like the 20th hour in, and you just clip a curve, you clip the inside of someone else as you're trying to carve through traffic, and then that's your race over pretty much. And it's just such a sinking feeling. So I've avoided it like the plague, but I can see the investment that you guys, sim racing, like these guys around this 24-hour COTA, the investment that they put into time, to the effort, and obviously the almost financial stuff as well. They like the buying the kit. They have their setup ready to go. They've got the snacks ready. They've got the food on the go. They've got someone probably helping them bring drinks in as we do for commentary for a 24-hour event like this. And all that sort of building up and that sort of for the actual day is fantastic. It's a lot like, I guess, like athletes going for a football match or a rugby match or hockey match, handball match, whatever they ended up doing. There's still an awful lot of training and preparation that gets involved, which is still just as thrilling as the actual race, really. As the number 6 car there, the Lmp of Christian Furs, just goes a touch wide. Let's see what happened to him. He looks like he's in a stable car at the moment. Is it just an outbreaking himself moment? I think it might be. A little bit of power on the marbles on the outside, just rotates the back end, and luckily no harm done from any other car.
Yeah, very well collected up there. Went the right way, went onto the AstroTurf, knowing full well that there are other cars on the way. Clever driving from himself, and continues on without too much of an issue. We've had another issue for Nicholas Pacheco in the Porsche, heading down towards the hairpin. Please don't make contact with another car. Does he outbrake himself a little bit? Looks like it's all clear, and once again, it looks like he is so desperate to avoid an off-track, he just jumps on the brakes and stops. A very odd incident for me. I would expect at that point, when it looks like you're going off the road, it is probably safer just to continue on and go on to the runoff. But once again, another odd incident. I think he's just so desperate to avoid off-tracks. He's almost at that point you've got to think, is that dangerous driving, jumping on the brakes? I know he's well and truly out the way, but if there's another car that's outbraked himself, you could get nailed in the door, and there you go, race over.
Yeah, it's always a fear because you go, anything that you do, any mistake that you've done, another driver could do exactly the same. So when your car's been parked, big lunge on the inside by the 298 car on the, who is that? That's Max Denart against Rondi Heyman. So by the looks of it, that was a big lunge up the inside into the first corner, inspired by the Simracersworld apparently at Interlagos. That sort of section of the track before going into the sort of twisty-windy stuff that we have on circuit here. But yeah, that was a big lunge going into the first corner. Luckily, Max Denard got away with that one because I thought it was going to be a big incident.
Yeah, let's have another look back. You can see he's on his way, and then a massive lunge, like you say, later on the brakes, grabs the apex, and another position gained, and he's pretty much secured it at that point. We've had an incident for Marcus Grul. Let's see what has happened here. In the .exe esports machine, does he over-rotate the car, or maybe over-rotates the car on the apex here? Once again, another similar incident, and then holds the brakes, makes sure he's nice and predictable, lets the cars go, and then goes the right way. Once again, clever driving from himself, great sportsmanship, goes onto the AstroTurf and onto the runoff, just to make sure he gets out of the way, and no harm, no foul there, just a little spin. Let's hope it hasn't hit his tyres too much. I think he may have lost a position from that. Let's have a quick look up to see where he is now. There he is in 13th in class, and there is Milan Tikans, and I think he might have lost a position there, having ended up pointing backwards for a sizable amount of time. But that's something we've mentioned a little bit as well. If you make the mistake, some of the drivers, they're so clever with what they do. If they end up pointing the wrong way, they just hold the brakes, make sure they're nice and predictable for every other car to see. They don't get in the way, and then if they are pointing the wrong way, they go the right way. They go onto their runoff just to make sure they don't hurt anybody else's race, and that's so nice to see. Even though the desperation to get back going again, grab first gear, loop the car around, You just sit where you are, make sure nobody's coming, and nice and safely just return to the track. And that's so nice to see, knowing that as much as you want to get going again, you've got the peace of mind just to go, yep, okay, I've made the mistake, let everybody go, and then I can return back racing.
Well, it's something that, you know, you learn with experience on sim racing, real life racing, whatever kind of racing you do, you learn that with experience. You know, if you try and, as you said, grab first gear, spin the car background and away you go, it's not always that easy because you can cause massive damage to not only you but another person and end up in the pits, and it just caused a huge mess. So these guys are extremely experienced, talking high level iRacing here, up towards 4,000, 5,000 iRacing, and for anybody who isn't involved in iRacing and doesn't really know what that means, it basically means they're very, very experienced and very successful in their craft, and they know exactly what to do, even if they do get a little bit sideways. And it's easy to do in that corner as well, because you're obviously holding the brake, trying to almost trail brake it in as Vatlet goes up the inside of one of the GT3 cars. You're trying to trail brake it in, so that means you've got an awful lot of steering lock as well, and a little bit too much a brake bias either way, or a little bit too much of the holding onto the brake as you're trying to trail it through. Just means you rotate the rear round, and it's so easy to do, and that's why we're seeing quite a few spins, specifically at that corner.
Yeah, it's such a unique corner as well. There's not really another corner you can compare it to. Obviously, the hairpin before the long straight is probably about as close as you can get. But like you say, turning and braking, pretty much #1 rule as we get 3 wide there. The Roaring Chicken Nuggets car pushing the LMP2 around that section of the circuit. Justin van der Linden in the IRNL red Porsche, the number 191. He's still trying to fend off the attentions of Jeroen Vatlet behind. Yeah, like you say, turning and braking is like the #1 rule. Do not turn and brake, because if you do it, you'll tend to swap ends and you'll end up pointing the wrong way. And that's why I think this circuit, as much as it does get a lot of stick, because I'm not personally the biggest of fans of this circuit. It doesn't work for me and my driving style. However, I know some drivers absolutely love it, purely for the challenge, because there's some very unique corners. And if you can nail this circuit and you nail the driving style that's required around here, you tend to be pretty much quick everywhere you go, and Jeroen Vatlet is trying to be as quick as possible, trying to get up the inside. There you go, position made for the moment, though. He's on the inside for the next right-hander. Then the left-hander will be kicked out wide once again. Jeroen Vatlet still in 3rd place, respectively. Round the outside, if he can carry the momentum around there, it will quickly come up to the inside, and there you go, position made. And all he needs to do is make sure he grabs the apexes, and pretty much a textbook overtake. Great stuff from himself, placed the car perfectly, but even more so, it looks great that Jeroen Vatlet's got in front, but also Justin van der Linden gave him the room, gave him the space to get that position made, and even though he's losing the position, he made sure he's nice and respectful when it happened. Yeah,
really good job there by Vatlet, and yeah, it's good racing all round. That's exactly the sort of thing you really want to see, and just like dropping back towards the sort of circuit of the Americas, and you know, COTA as we call it, and it's sort of its slang term, shall we say. You know, it's amazing to think that this circuit was only really sort of thought of only 10 years ago. It actually only opened 8 years ago in 2012, and it was sort of the only reason why they wanted it is because they wanted a venue that would be able to host the likes of Formula 1 and MotoGP, which it now does, the only venue in the North America that is able to do such a thing. But I haven't seen it. Does the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship and the FIA World Endurance Championship, so it's got all the major championships along with it, and I just love the fact I'm looking at their website now, and they have all this listing of all these amazing events, motorsport events that it has. But it also says, oh yeah, we've also hosted Kelly Clarkson as a concert as well. So it's a pretty they have their priorities in America right, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. They've got to make sure motorsport's at the top, but Kelly Clarkson, well, close second, of course. We do have we do have a race going on apparently. Besides Kelly Clarkson, you can see this battle going on as well. This is Perry Oosterhover, who's still just about in front of Milan Tikens. The battle we just left is getting closer and closer. Naturally, as we go down the straight, still Jeroen Vatlet in front, with Justin van der Linden behind. And something we haven't noticed, that lead has come down from what was 15, 16 seconds to 3 seconds. That is Aaron Taylor. There is Budwin Kuster. This will be a battle for position in the next coming laps.
Yeah, and a battle that we're very much looking forward to as well, as we're just past the hour-and-a-half stage, lap 48 out of, well, hundreds, let's face it, upcoming. And yeah, the fact that we've got all these little battles right now is really sort of mouth-watering for what's to come. I'm a bit surprised that we haven't seen any more pit stops for the LMP2 class, although I think there has been a whole host of pit stops that we just haven't really haven't seen on the stream. But yeah, we are an hour and a half in. We've got half an hour until the next round of pit stops for basically everyone, actually, because they should all link up with 2 hours to go. So how this battle sort of sorts itself out in terms of the upcoming next 30 minutes is going to be really interesting, because everyone on track is about to pile into their second pit stop, or third pit stops if you're Lmp2.
They will indeed, and we are hearing through various chats that Shane van Gisbergen has just connected to the session. That is the Aussie V8 Supercars 2016 champion. He's had what I think probably about 30 odd race wins, 35 race wins in the V8 Supercar. So definitely knows what he's doing behind the wheel. Of course, just to link that to our 100th stream as well. This is our 100th broadcast here on Simracersworld TV. So thank you very much for watching along, everybody that's here, and thank you very much for everybody that's watched us on this journey. We've just we surpassed 1,000 subscribers earlier this year, and we're still charging forward, of course. And thank you very much if you've been a part of that as well. So please don't forget to like and subscribe. And like you said, Jacko, we've just got past the 1.5 hour mark. And do you think it's time just for a quick 5-minute break so we can get refreshed? We'll leave the drivers to it, doing what they do best. We'll stick them on board, and we'll be back with them in about 5 minutes, say.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'm desperately needing of a drink, so let's leave us on board with an LMP2 car, and the viewers at home can experience the speed at which these guys are attacking the COTA circuit.
Right, so welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed riding on board with Boudewijn Koester behind the wheel of that beautiful Lmp2, and it's a great livery aboard that PM Esports machine. And we are hearing that David Plasman, who was running in second place in our GTE category, he's had a few connection issues. I'm not sure whether you can shine a light on that, Jacko, but I can't say I don't think I saw anything. We've had a few driver changes as well. We've now got the Sim Controls X Volante Esports machine, which was piloted by David Plasman, now piloted by Daniel Nestorovic, the Dane. I'm sure Hasarema, if he's in chat, he will be able to advise me how to say that one. I know I struggle with a few of the pronunciations, so please any help would be needed. Hasa, Jacko, are you with us?
I am indeed, yeah, and I'm just having a look, and I'm not sure what's happened to Plasman, but I'm sure his teammate will be able to fly up the field, a little bit like you, Jack. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce the name, so as you said, if Hasa is around and about, then it'd be great to have a little bit of aid on that one. But I'm sure that he's probably just as quick as David, so he'll be flying up the order, I'm sure. We're on board with Milan Tikans as well in 10th place overall. He's had a bit of an up and down evening so far of it, but he's really trying to get the hammer down. He's really actually very close to his rivals ahead, the Apex Racing team, Oosterveer, and Sam Helton as well. So the LMP2 cars are really very still close together, aren't they? It's brilliant to see that this racing is carrying on well into almost the second hour.
Yeah, it's nice to see that it's starting to develop as the race goes on. I'm just looking. There is Dennis Neidhart, our GTE race leader, and then back to Daniel Nestorovic. I'm sure. I hope CSR Martin can maybe help me with that in the chat. He is now 2 minutes and 33 seconds back. Is the Sim Controls X Volante Esports machine? So I fear, yeah, that was some sort of connection issue, and they've had to tow the car back to the pit lane. That is a lot of lost time while we were away. We are sorry we managed to miss that. So welcome if you are joining us. We're seeing a few new faces in the chat. Hasa saying, well, it's pretty straightforward. Well, I'm sure it would be, but I'm not the best with my pronunciations. However, we are seeing the Dane behind the wheel of that 101 machine very quickly, pretty much placing his mark on everybody. There is Arjun van Grottel in the IRNL. There we go. The orange 112 Porsche, or Ferrari, pardon me, is already under pressure here from the Sim Controls X Volante Esports machine. 3/10 separating the pair of them. Expect to see the position change going on to the next lap. A bit of LMP2 traffic just negotiating its way by. The number 69 machine, that's a good run round the outside. Can he remain in position on the inside? There you go, position made, textbook overtake. Use the LMP2 to his advantage, and the outside turn to the inside, and position gained up into P23 overall, and that is now P9 in class.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's certainly going to be not hanging around by the looks of it, and I think a few people in the chat are hoping to have some interval times. We can get them up on the timing tower, Jack. That'd be absolutely brilliant. But yeah, he's certainly not hanging around. He's wanting to get that position back in. We saw the Porsche squatting, hunkering down, and looking very aggressive before in the hands of Plasman, but he's obviously handed it over, and it's looking just the same with his teammate now. The Sim Controls X Volante Esports car is going to be absolutely flying, make no mistakes about that, and we'll keep an eye on how he progresses. There's a little bit of a lockup with the GT3 car, the LMP, driving around the outside, the Apex Hunters, and this is the PM Esports. It's a big crash, big incident with the PM Esports car. It's straight into the back of one of the GT3 cars. Let's have a look at who it was. This is Koester on board in the LMP car, and the GT3, the 234 car. If you can just have a look and see what that is, Jack. But it's a huge incident as the Koester just seemed to come straight back and try and take the racing line, almost as if the GT3 car wasn't there.
Yeah, an odd incident there. That was Jelle Eulenbroek for Radion Motorsport that got collected in that incident. I am going to have one more look back, this time if it lets us do it. We can hear it going on in the background, but we just don't have the images for you, so sorry about that. Should get back live. There we go. So Jelle Eulenbroek now down in 37th position. Quite the gap up to the car ahead as well. 44 seconds until he will get to Rondi Heyman. and the CCTS Esport Endurance. And Hassa, I was talking about the number 101 Daniel Nestorovic, I think, in the Sim Controls Explante Esports machine. And that was the driver I was referring to. We've had an incident for the driver in question. There is the Chicken Nuggets machine in the background, running him to the edge of the track. That's going to be a massive incident, hard into the Armco barrier. Bouncing, bouncing, bouncing. And does he come back across the track? Great avoidance driving from everybody. However, I think that could have just been maybe slightly unsighted with the Chicken Nuggets machine. So he went over to the left-hand side, got ushered right over to the line. And then, yeah, just wasn't willing to give up any more track as the Dane continued to come over, and then bouncing over the track. Somehow managed to get avoided by everybody else. We've had other incidents as well. Sam Helson has had quite the incident by the looks of it in the number 72 Stage 1 Racing Junior LMP2 in towards the hairpin. Does he get collected? Is there a tag? I think there's a slight bit of contact there. Ends up pointing the wrong way. Holds the brakes and makes sure he can rejoin as safely as possible, and just waiting for everybody to come by as the freight train goes steaming through. But I think for me that was pretty much two cars going for the same piece of tarmac once again. However, we did see that the Roaring Chicken Nuggets machine wasn't willing to give up any more space. He'd given up what he wanted, and he was like, right, okay, I'm on the inside now, this is where I am. And I think just Daniel refused to believe it and carried on moving over, and it sort of bit him, and he went straight into the Armco.
Yeah, not ideal, and a few people on the chat giving their opinions. By all means, carry on sort of speculating what you sort of think there, but it's unfortunate, really. But that's like we were saying before. It's the fact that, you know, although charging through the order is all very well and good, realistically, a little bit more of a calm approach, a more conservative approach can somehow help you in the long run. You know, if the move isn't really on, or if there's no need to squeeze each other that hard, you know, it's all about just trying to keep your general time up. You know, these drivers won't be driving at 100% flying laps, qualifying laps every single time. They'll be trying to drive at the 90-95% sort of area, and it's all about consistency. It's all about just trying to do your lap times within the same 3 to 4 seconds, you know, of consistency each and every time, even if you're trying to go through traffic. So, yeah, a little bit more racing room potentially is what those guys will have learned for next time. There is an awful long way to go, so I'm sure we'll see that car straight back up the order as soon as possible as well.
Yeah, I think that, like you say, just a lesson to be learned, and as the race wears on, you'll see that the drivers will slowly start to develop. And I'm just looking at that IRNL red machine. Look how dirty the front of that car is. Marbles and bits of rubber and oil and whatever else has been spat up onto the front of that car. It's really starting to look like it's already been racing for 24 hours, but we've only been out on track for 1 hour and 46 minutes. The lead lap is now lap 56, so we've got second place in the pit lane. That's Nick Foster, who's now down into P3 as Boudwin Kuster goes screaming by. So is this one of the scheduled pit stops? Finds his pit box, stops there. Does he go up on the jacks? I don't think he does this time by. But that's P3 in the pit lane. There is Boudwin Kuster, now 14 seconds, best part of 15 seconds back from Aaron Taylor, who has led from the start. Very dominating drive so far, and to lead 55 laps at the start of the race and to just build that gap bit by bit by bit, and having to negotiate traffic and whatever else, that really just shows the level of his driving. And if they've put him in at the start, do we have more drivers of the same sort of skill set to come? I sure hope so, because we're going to end up with some very, very close racing in the final few stages of the race.
Yeah, well, when we rejoin the comms box, obviously in the final few stages, like you just said, I wouldn't really be at all surprised to see the CXR Project Black car. Really, if not at the very front by about 5-10 minutes, I would strongly suspect that they would be fighting for the podium positions. But obviously, this is endurance racing; anything can happen. And just a slight mistake from another car, maybe a car spinning in front of him and ending up on the wrong bit of track. Nothing to do with the CXR car whatsoever. You know, it can still end in disaster for him. So there's an awful long way to go. But if you were counting this as 2-hour stints, the CXR black car of Aaron Taylor has absolutely flown through it. Really dominating display so far.
Yeah, he's done an amazing job at just keeping it on the track. We've seen pretty much every driver make just a slight mistake, whether it's a lock-up or a spin or maybe a slight bit of contact with another car. Aaron Taylor has been pretty much faultless throughout the entire race. We're hearing Hasa saying it's Nestirovic. I think that is who he's referring to, and himself and his fellow Team Simpac driver Martin having a fair bit of banter in the chat. You can see it's all going mental between himself, TSR Martin and the Mew. It's nice to see everybody's nice and interactive in chat. If you are there, please do feel free to say hello. If you'd like to see a specific car, let us know, whether it's a favourite livery or just you've got relations to the team. We will do our best to get it up on stream. We will, 9 times out of 10 though, look at battles. For example, this is Daniel Nestorovic battling Arjen van Grol. I think these two swapped positions a few laps ago when they're trying to do it once again. This is the 101 Porsche letting by a bit of traffic. Is that Raymond Suffaliers? No, I think it could be another one of the DRC machines. I'll have to go back to see who it was. So there is the Porsche. Are these two together? No, I can't figure out who that is. I think it might be the DRC Red, which is, there it is. That's Perry Pienarken, pardon me, in the number 121 Porsche. And like you say, look, the traffic's weaved its way through and been read perfectly by the Dane, and he just follows him through, follows the traffic through the same gap position, maybe without too much of an issue. And he's now got the Porsche in front just to sit on, save a bit of fuel, while also possibly pulling away from the Ferrari behind. So it's really started to play into the hand of Sim Control's Volante Esports after the issue.
Yeah, he's coming back strong. Maybe he's just learnt a little bit, thing or two. He's reading the traffic instead of just trying to dive up the inside and forcing people into mistakes. But yeah, he's gone through. He's now not quite last in this category. It's a real shame, actually, that we saw them having connection issues or whatever they did have as they were handing over the driver. But with any luck, we'll see. It'll be a good show of them trying to push through the order, making sure that we're obviously having something to watch and cheer about. So I'm sure there's plenty of Sim Control's Volante fans in the chat or watching this will probably turn into fans throughout the rest of this race, because he's certainly putting on a show.
Absolutely, he's definitely, yeah, like I say, showing us what to do after making up or trying to make up for that previous incident. We have Peppian Krijveld saying that his favourite livery is the PM Esports Lmp2, in my opinion, and I've got to agree, that is one very, very nice livery, although I don't like to pick favourites, so that is definitely up there. I think I just love the complexity of it. You got any preference, Jacko, any other liveries that sort of pop out in your head that you think, yeah, that one really suits that car?
To be honest, every time we see Kusta, it's instantly recognisable, isn't it? It's like, okay, this is the battle we're watching. As he locks up, as we're complimenting him, commentator's curse, he ends up locking up straight on. And there has been a whole host of other liveries, but to be honest, the Chicken Nuggets car is always going to be a bit of a favourite of mine. But that's just because it's got a bit of humour about it. But pretty much everyone is. Simracersworld, I know we're a little bit biased. Don't take it the wrong way, everybody else, but that does look very smart in the sort of matte orange as well. In the Mercedes, looking very good. But to be honest, they're all looking really rather smart. There it is again, the Simracersworld, and I think I have a bit of an accustomed to it because it's actually the livery, basically, of the car I used to drive in real life and want to race in a little Ginetta. So I think it's very similar, and that's probably why I have a bit of a draw to it.
It is a very nice livery. I used to race in a very similar livery for SRW TV when I was racing the Mercedes for them in the GT3 World League, and then swapped to the Ford, and I've got to say it is a very nice car. It's a shame it's not as popular, but yeah, like you say, a very, very nice livery, and I'm sure Chaz will be a fan with the spec map on that car. Just further back through that class, we've still got GT's battle, GT3 battles, pardon me, I will eventually get it right, going on. This is Danny Hugendorf in the DSCDA Esports Red Audi, who is very close to the tail end, having a look up the inside of Chivan Walkham in the Trackside Esports Orange Mercedes, another livery which looks very nice with its spec map on there.
It does look very nice, to be fair. That anything matted is looking really good in the lighting that we've got right now.
Yeah, it really is. I think it's just, yeah, the light of dusk looks very good. You'll see on the right hand side of your screen the current in-sim time closing up on what is 5 o'clock in sim, and the track temperature at the bottom of there is 22 degrees, so by all means quite a cool track. So the drivers will be enjoying this, plenty of grip out there, and as the track rubbers in, it will only get better. You can see the rubbered line there, the sun bouncing off the rubbered part of the circuit. 20 degrees air temperature and very little wind as well. So so not much in the way of any outside sort of proceedings that will affect your race. But at the moment, somebody who's hoping that the guy behind doesn't affect his race is Gte Battle, pardon me, who has still got that Audi right on his tail. Gets the better run coming out of the hairpin purely because Danny behind has to give up a bit of time for that GTE. However, he will have the draft assistance from the GTE. Use him a little bit down the straight. He might open up a bit of a gap in towards the hairpin, but that gap is way too big to even think about a move as the leader crosses the line once again to tick lap number 60 in the book. These two, I believe, are the closest cars on circuit, which just shows we've got to that point in the race where everything started to settle down. But then, I say that, 5 minutes time, we'll have battles here, there and everywhere for probably first in class.
It's amazing, isn't it, really? Because all of a sudden everybody sort of dies down. It's just the way in motorsport, not really sure why it happens, but all of a sudden everybody sort of bunches up for about 5 minutes, and then they all spread out again for half an hour, and then they'll all bunch up again. They all just seem to congregate all on one track, and there's an awful lot of traffic and battles to be getting through. But you're right, this is a very, very tight battle for the sort of mid-pack of the GT3 category, really. Gte Vandenbrook and Danny Hugendorn is very, very close to each other, and it's brilliant to see as well. As you said, like, everybody's calming down a little bit, but there's still little fights here and there. They're not necessarily for podium positions, but this will mean everything to these drivers, even if it is only fighting for potentially 6th or 7th. It'll mean everything to them, and the drivers who are currently in there at the moment at the driver's seat will be sort of really just wanting to get down and dirty and do the sort of racing driver stuff of actually like trying to overtake and try and push as hard as they can. And probably all their teammates will be sat there thinking, calm down, guys. Let's just get through the next half an hour. Let's get to the next strategy, next pit stop without any damage, and see where we can go from there.
Absolutely. You think you can go into a race, as I know with the iRacing official special events, you can put all the effort into working your strategy, making it perfect, but a mistake on the first couple of laps, you get into a bit of contact, that throws you out for the rest of the race, and you've then got to work around that damage. If you've got damage, what are you going to do in the pit stop to help that? What are you going to do throughout your stint to minimise the loss throughout? So although some of these drivers might have gone into this race knowing full well what they're going to do on strategy, if they've had an incident, if they've been held up, if they're trying to defend, you will lose time. You might gain time here and there, and it can throw off your strategy. So that's something to bear in mind. We've still got Edmey and Hasse in the chat, and they're just referring to one of the rounds of the GT3 World League when I was driving the Ford. Very sideways for most of it. Managed to get the win. I think it was a bit of a fluke because I've not managed to do it since. But yeah, I've got to say it was great fun. And we will be handing you over to Hasse and Edmey at the 4-hour mark. So you've still got 2 hours stuck with me and Jacko, and then we'll hand you over to Hasse and Edmey. So lots to look forward to, of course. And then we go into the night stint where we won't have commentary, but we will still have live coverage of everything that's going on. You'll see all the battles and all the timings and everything that you'll need to keep an eye on. And then you'll be back with Hasse and Ed coming out of the night, and then it's back with me and you, Jacko, for the final 4 hours of proceedings. And by the looks of it, somebody who's not wanting to stick behind him for much longer. There you go, Gte Vandenbrook in the Trackside Esports Orange. Loses out there to Danny Hugendorn, and he's up into 7th place in class. How long this lasts, I don't know, because he's got the position made, left himself vulnerable on the run up to turn 1, and the Mercedes had the inside early, braking very late on the brakes for the number 217, outbrakes himself trying to overcompensate, and there you go. He might have just got the position, but he's stuck back behind the Mercedes once again. Easily done there.
Yeah, and the Max Denart as well in the KF Motorsport car is actually not that far away from them, really. Sometimes you get a bit of a glimpse of the KF Motorsport car in the background. He's only he's below 1.5 seconds now as these two are fighting. This could be a three-way fight before you know it, really, for this sort of mid-pack. And Max Denart, he's been a feature on the stream so far quite a lot, hasn't he, really? He's been in amongst the wars, obviously, with Bob Boland and, oh, God, off the top of my head, the other car is gone now, but Bob Boland in the SRW car was really obviously trying to fight through him, but he's been a really good racer and a real sort of like highlight of the stream so far. Of now, Hugendorn is really trying and put the works on of Workham. He hasn't been able to quite do it yet, and it really has invited Max. Now this is a three-way fight.
Yeah, like you say, it's just an easy thing to do. You make a mistake or you start battling with people, it slows you down so much and it brings another car into the mix, and that can turn the battle, like you say, from just a little two-way battle into a three-way battle, which brings a whole new dynamic to it, side by side into the hairpin. Somehow they managed to avoid contact. Still, it's the Mercedes of Gte Battle leading the way, but look at that, that's Max Denart on the inside of Danny Hugendorm, and I think he's got the position made, and he's already looking to get past Jay Van Walker in the 283 machine through the final sector of the circuit, following him round in the draft. I mean, it looks good that you're in the draft, you might gain time, but you can get aero washed through the high downforce corners. Still with Jay Van Walker on the inside, he might get the position or stay in the position for the moment, but look at that cutback once again. Max Denart up the inside, and 2 positions gained in the space of a sector later on the brakes up the inside, but we saw this happen on the lap prior. It looks like Jay Van Walker might get the better run. He does have the draft assistance. Keep an eye out for Danny Hugendorm in the background though, because he will get double draft assistance on the run towards turn 1. Looks like Max Denart is wise to the move, goes to the inside, and Jay Van Walker tries to sell him the dummy to the outside and throws each other around. I think maybe a slight bit of contact there for Danny Hugendorm, just a slight tap on the rear end. It might have lost him a bit of time there. You can see that gap's opened up, but once again, this battle dynamic has completely changed. You've seen Mercedes versus Audi. Somebody rocks up, and there you go, 2 different cars once again battling somebody else's battle. And it's really played into the hands of Max Denart. 2 positions gained in the space of, what, half a lap?
Yeah, it's really quite annoying when you're the one who's putting all the pressure on, and all of a sudden someone comes in and ruins the party and takes all the credit, really. But Max Denart has absolutely done what he needed to do. He's carved through them without wasting too much time and left them to fight on their own. And I believe that was an LMP2 car that's come out just ahead of him. He's going up the inside of Max Denart now, and that's actually the first. I think that was Harry Pipes. He was the first of the LMP2 cars to pit in for their 3rd pit stop of the race so far. So we're 2 hours in, we're pretty much bang on the 3rd pit stop period for the LMP2 cars, and I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing GT3s and GTEs come in as well for their 2nd pit stop of the day, obviously, unless they had to come in for an earlier pit stop. But there is COTA in 2nd place. He's in the pits getting a bit of fuel. Not sure if we see if he's getting tyres, but there is going to be a driver change by the looks of it as he flits in and out of existence, and he hands the reins over to Robin Menz.
Yeah, so Robin Menz, like you say, now behind the wheel of that Apex Hunters, of that PM Esports machine. And still this battle rages on, and it's very Bod Boland-esque by Max Denart. He's rocked up to this battle, he's shown the 2 how to do it, and then just left him to keep battling. And he's got some clear air and built that gap up very, very nicely. You can see in one shot there all the classes trying to vie for position. GT3's battling away while also trying not to get in the way. I think that was the Sim Controls Exvolante machine. It was, and that's our leader also working his way through. There is Aaron Taylor for CXR Project Black crossing the line once again, going on to now what is lap 65. So I think it's yes, going on to lap 64, pardon me. So another lap completed. Nick Foster now there in 2nd place. He's had 3 pit stops, so as it stands I think he's actually standing himself in quite good stead. There is Falco Verkamp. He has taken over that Team DRC Orange LMP2 machine. A few new drivers slowly starting to get into their cars. Jeffrey Colmel in the Next Level Racing LMP2. We've got, yeah, lots of new drivers starting to work their way onto the track, and still battles going on. However, the battle we were just looking at, I think it's slowly starting to edge its way out. Yeah, now 2 seconds separating a pair of them. What has happened? I think that might be an incident for Jay Van Walker, because he's lost a lot of time now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, really. But obviously he's lost a big amount of time. He's lost a couple of places. He probably won't be too happy with how the last couple of laps have gone, the last 5-10 minutes. He needs to reset, get back into the groove and make sure that he's making his way back up the order. And here you can see the incident with himself and potentially Hugendorm. Or is he just going to go wide, run onto the marbles a little bit maybe? Oh, that's a GTE car in the background there as well. It's the well, I don't really see what's going to happen here, to be honest. It just looks like he just gets dropped, and yeah, he doesn't seem to have a big spin or anything. Maybe he's just letting traffic through, and all of a sudden he loses out for an awful lot of time.
Yeah, that is exactly what happened. Look at the gap now up to Danny. That was just after that little that little tete-a-tete with with the traffic. There is Cho van Workum in the trackside esports machine. Now 3.8 seconds, basically 4 seconds back from Danny Hugendorm. So definitely built that gap up very nicely. Just shows traffic can work with or against you at all different points in the race. We do have a new battle developing up the road. This is Arjan van Grol and Leslie Vandenbrook getting closer and closer together. Both teammates, of course. Ferrari versus Porsche. We've seen battles in real life that Ferrari versus Porsche, they can be quite fierce battles, and especially with teammates, we've seen some very exciting inter-team rivalries over the years. And at this point, you've got, I think that's pretty much all the IRNL iRacing Netherlands team cars all in one shot. Let's see whether we can get another shot of this looking down the straight. There you go, there they all are.
I'm sure they'll be very pleased with that one. A little photo opportunity for the team. There we go. Lovely shot there, going into the dusk as well with the headlights on. Looking really rather smart, it has to be said. They've done a good job at representing themselves in all the categories in this race. But yeah, also I've just seen as well, I think Custer, obviously he handed over to Robin Ment. I think they were given a black flag as well, because they've done their 3 pit stops, but a whole host of other drivers have done 3 pit stops as well. I've just seen, it just came up as an incident that he's got a black flag, so really not sure what happened to him or what he did to deserve that. I'll try and do a little bit of investigation on the Discord and see what the stewards are saying.
It does look like he has had some sort of stop-go penalty, because the average time that you spend in your pit box, if you're taking tyres, it's just about 50 seconds, 55 seconds. If you're not, you're looking at about 30 seconds for a pit stop. And Robin Menz spent 1 minute and 28 seconds in his pit box, so definitely spent a lot longer than he would like there. So yeah, like you say, good spot there. I think he has had some sort of penalty. Aaron Taylor peeling his way into the pits, so our overall race leader coming into the pits for the 3rd time. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see the driver swap take place in the number 46 machine. It's done a brilliant job behind the wheel of that CXR Project Black machine, led from the green flag, and he's just kept it clean and consistent. As we said at the start, that is all you need to do. If you keep it clean, keep it consistent, keep it on the track, and most importantly, negotiate the traffic as best as you can, then that is what will stand you in good stead. He hands the car over to Paul Searle, so Paul Searle now in the lead LMP2 machine. Where is the car behind? There is Nick Foster, still what's a 1/3 of a lap back, so the lead still remains quite healthy for the CXR Project Black guys. And at the moment, the field has opened up, apart from one battle, this one here. Look how close these two are side by side now. Max Denart on the outside, and Danny Hugendorm was on the inside, but Max Denart gets the move made on the inside. There you go, job done just before what is quite a tricky part of the circuit to overtake. So he's done it at the right point there, hasn't he?
He has indeed, yeah, and I'm just having a look as well. I said I'd do a bit of an investigation. Robin Menz is back in the pits as well. He had 2 penalties given to him by the steward, I think, and then by the looks of it, iRacing is giving him another one. So not entirely sure what happened, maybe a bit of speeding in the pit lane. But he's going to be dropping well down the order yet again. So not ideal for the PM Esports car, who was obviously on the podium at one point. But it's a long race, they'll come back on it.
Yeah, they've had a rotten race so far. They've had some brilliant parts of the race, of course, with them getting hit towards the start, and then ended up carving their way back up through the order. Then another incident put them back, and now they're back once again. Then they were carving their way back up through the order, trying to negotiate a bit of traffic, and what you say, almost 3 penalties there, so lots to deal with. Hopefully that's their lot for the rest of the race now. They've had them all in one chunk, and we know how quick that car is, so let's hope that they can start treating us to another one of their comeback drives. It was a great performance previously, working their way up through the order. Still got cars battling away. This is Marcus Grul in the .exe esports machine. I do love that livery, and I think you're on the same page as me, Jacko. That is a great livery. There's Harry Pipes in the Project Dynamic number 18. Somebody in chat said it earlier, Max BWS, saying the DRC livery gets better the lower the sun gets. Let's find a DRC livery. We'll pick that one. That is Falco Verkamp in 3rd place, the number 14 machine. I'll keep an eye on that because I'm trying to figure out how it could get better. It already looks amazing. How is it going to get any better? Has it got some sort of high visibility chrome strip somewhere that we can't quite see yet?
I don't know, I was just thinking that maybe the flecks of orange are maybe going to light up and blow us away, but it is a good looking livery, to be fair, and I think he just wanted probably to see it on the stream again, so there you go, you've had your wish, and it does look very smart. But yeah, currently in third place in class, so actually that's probably more important than the livery, to be fair. Project Dynamic, though, very, very close to the .exe Esports car, just ahead as well. Gruel and I've just lost the timing tower just for a second. Gruel in the .exe Esports and the Harry Pipes just behind. So it's going to be the closest battle that we've got on circuit for now. The LMP2 cars really giving us a great sort of opportunity to see how these cars go head-to-head, toe-to-toe. A lot of the time, like as I said, I've covered VLN rounds and stuff before. The top class often just fly away and they just drive away from each other. But these guys are really keeping close on sort of equal footing for the entirety. Obviously, there's a bit of a balanced performance in the likes of the GTE cars, but they're really doing a good job at keeping everyone really equal, and everyone is obviously fighting for track position as the night comes in. That's going to be even more crucial, isn't it? I mean, we've said it a couple of times, but if you just link it to the fact that you know, at night time it's even harder with the visibility, you want to make sure that you're in a good solid track position. If you start fighting and overtaking with another car and doing all this battling that we've seen them do in the daytime, it becomes an awful lot harder, an awful lot more dangerous as the Team DRC red car just gets a little bit loose on the exit there. Hopefully he doesn't overcook his tyres. But yeah, the more you battle at night, the more opportunity there is for you obviously to fly off a lockup for the DRC red car as well. And this will give the opportunity to the Digital Apex Racing team, Matt Lota, to get up alongside in the back straight now. He'll be on the inside going into the next braking zone. He may well have this sealed and dealed.
Yeah, it looks like he has got the position on track as it stands. With him being on the inside, is he later on the brakes? No, the position stays as is. However, I'm not sure how long that will stay, with traffic slowly starting to encroach on this battle. Once again, we're seeing that traffic will start to play its part as the race wears on. 2 hours and 10 minutes into the race. That is Edelman in the trackside Wolfpack Mercedes. We saw them get an absolutely blinding start, almost too good, and it appears that it was obviously receiving that penalty for jumping the start, sadly. However, they have been carving their way up through the order ever since, and that bit of traffic has just opened up the battle we were looking at ever so slightly. Now 9/10 of a second. It's going to be very close between the pair of them as they leave the pits, both of them coming into the pits at the same time. Team DRC Red enter the pit lane in the lead of that battle, and there is Madlubsa in the Digital Apex machine. There is the .exe family machine, still piloted by Dennis Neidhart. And they are still...
Yeah, he's driving away from it a little bit, isn't he? He's doing an absolute sterling jogging yet again. We'll see if he comes into the pits, but he may have saved a little bit of fuel, which obviously is the reason why he got into the lead in the first place.
Yeah, I think that is exactly what they've done. They just saved the fuel, and like I mentioned, the Ford is one of the most economical cars, and as Peter Mackay is always echoing in my ear, one of my fellow commentators, just saying that the Ford GT, the way it's been built, is it can rev to about 9,000 RPM. However, you don't need to rev to the top of the rev range. You can change up nice and early because you just don't produce any more power in the higher revs, so you can almost short shift, which is what makes it so economical. And with Dennis Neidhart being sat behind one of the, I think it was the ASK Volante machine, they were just sat behind it, more than happy, just saving all that fuel, and it appeared to play to their hand. And like you say, he's just absolutely storming away with it. He's got a 2-minute lead as it stands. It's only pitted once, so he does still have to pit again. But the closest car 2 minutes away, and that's Nick Stoop in the Roaring Chicken Nuggets machine. And look at that, they're almost together. They're almost a full lap over each other. Dennis Neidhart, that means, yeah, the only car that he hasn't lapped is the car in P2, with a pit stop still to take, of course. But that is really an achievement.
Yeah, and Nick Stoop, he's taken his pit stop, so it's not like that Stoop is going to really catch up that much. Neidhart has done a sterling job, it has to be said. You can't take that away from him. He's done really well. But Michael Schieber here and Sam Helson just behind. This is going to be really, very close. They're very similar looking liveries as well, actually. but they're very sort of at each other right now. And yet again, the LMP2 cars bringing up the actual like on-track racing going into the night as we expect. I think these guys have actually come in. Yeah, they've both come in for their third pit stops, so it's unlikely to see this interrupted for the next 40 minutes. Really, we'll see how they calm themselves down out on circuit.
Yeah, let's hope that this battle settles itself easily. We've seen a couple of mistakes from a few drivers that just haven't maybe been as wise to the move behind, and it's so difficult, especially when you're in the LMP2. You're driving at such high speed, you've got to have full commitment and full confidence in the car, and then when you've got traffic in the mix, you're having a battle and you've got to keep an eye on your rearview mirror, keep an eye at what's on its way, keep an eye on your delta in case the car's spun in front of you. It's such a busy job in these LMP2s. That was very close there between the GT3 Audi. I'm trying to figure out who that was that nearly got collected there. Was that? No, it definitely wasn't that car. It definitely wasn't Ian Roots. Oh, Ian Roots is in the car. He told us not to look at him, but Ian, I'm sorry, we're going to have to.
Yeah, the Simracersworld, they've swapped over. This is their third driver change of the evening so far. Obviously, they started with Bob Boland. They had Matteo Sufi in the car just before, and by the looks of it, they've just swapped in Ian Roots in. So no wonder he's gone quiet on our Discord, telling us what to do. He's in the car racing it. So good luck to Ian, and let's see how he. Oh, I thought he was about to go straight into the back of the LMP2 car. I'm sure he wouldn't have been very pleased if we'd broadcast that one.
No, definitely not. We've seen Ian out in various cars on the Simracersworld TV channel, specifically in the GT Evo series. We've seen him out occasionally in that. We did end up picking up one of his incidents there when he fired it into the wall at Mosport, into the pit exit wall. That was quite a spectacular incident to watch. However much he hated it, but yeah, it was quite a good little incident to watch, and that's something that we haven't seen much of, purely because I think we've got vast amounts of runoff here at COTA. There's so much painted tarmac, and then you've got grass and gravel, and then eventually you get to Armco. We've seen probably one big incident going down the long back straight, but I think it's quite a forgiving circuit. As long as you keep it off the sausage curbs, you don't overdrive your car, you've got a fair bit of room to play with, haven't you?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, there's quite a lot of opportunities for a little bit of a rotation, but there's not much in the way of actually big incidents, really. You can sort of get away with. There's a little like Silverstone in that respect. Sort of, there's lots of runoff and opportunities to sort of save yourself. But yeah, I was just going back as well. Ian Roots, he also takes part in the NASCAR series on a Monday night where me and Hassa cover. Hassa obviously later on in the booth, but he's a real big fan of the oval racing, so he's proving that he can turn right as well. Not just turn left, but yeah, he's hopefully going to be putting some quick lap times down. They're not doing too bad as well in the mid-pack for the GT3 cars. I'm sure they'll be pleased with that.
Yeah, it does look like they've definitely got the bit between their teeth, like you say. A great opening stint from Bob Boland. There is our leader, just working their way by. Paul Searle in the CXR Project Black LMP2. Now, only a 6-second lead back to Apex Hunter's LMP2. And looking at the previous laps, that gap is only going to come down. Nick Foster on the last lap, a 1 minute 52.01. Oh, sorry, that's the fastest lap. Nick Foster on the last lap was a 1 minute 52.98. And Paul Searle, a 1 minute 54.69. So still just getting used to the car, I think, is Paul. Getting the car developed and happy underneath him. However, that gap has come down very substantially since we last saw, so the pressure is definitely on Paul. We'll keep an eye on him though. He looks like he's working his way through traffic. That's brave stuff. I thought he was going to go for that, but pulled out of that move at the very last minute. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on this battle because this is the battle for the overall lead. So far, that CXR Project Black number 46 machine has led from the go. However, how long that lasts, I don't know, because the number 3 is definitely on a mission trying to catch back up.
Yeah, for the first time since the first 3 or 4 laps, we could actually see a camera shot where potentially we see the first and second place car in the LMP2 class actually getting really rather close to each other. Nick Foster absolutely flying at the moment. Obviously, that 2-second differential that Paul Searle lost, could have been due to the fact that he may have had a little bit of traffic that he was upset with. So as they come across the line now, we'll see what his lap time has just pinged through, and in fact is actually a little bit slower. So as Nick Foster is coming up, he's actually still 2 seconds a lap quicker than Paul. So this is going to be really very quick in terms of when we actually get this race heated up, and that 20-second gap that we were seeing is pretty much vanished.
Yeah, it's definitely started to come down now. Kirsten in the chat saying, "Oh my God, look at those grandstands. There is no social distancing at all." And I didn't turn the crowds off, but I know Hassa will. Hassa, we will be handing over to Hassa and Edmay in just over 1.5 hours' time. My God, that's gone quickly. But I know Hassa will turn the crowds off, so we'll send everybody home. We'll let them watch the first couple of hours, or the first few hours, and then we'll send everyone home. So hopefully that solves the issue. But back to what's going on. Paul Searle almost within 5 seconds now. Also another LMP2 battle that's going on, Jacko. Harry Pipes and Vincent Usmans, pardon me, in the Apex Racing team car. Still close together. However, Harry Pipes has been getting closer and closer and closer. Once again, this comes down to lap time by the looks of it. Harry Pipes 2 seconds a lap quicker, and then in towards the hairpin, on towards the back straight. He had a little look and decided maybe if I can just sacrifice a bit of time here. Going onto the straight, he will have the draft assistance. As long as he can get the car slowed down on the brakes, he should be there or thereabouts come the hairpin at the end of the straight. What do you think is going to happen, Jacko?
Well, I think he's prioritised exit over entry, which is exactly what he needed to do. As he gets into the slipstream, he dives to the inside. I don't think there's anything that Vincent is going to be able to do as Harry flies up the inside. Does he make the exit? Yes, he does. So, yeah, absolutely nothing that the Apex Racing team could do there. The Project Dynamic car had a brilliant run. He's clearly been the faster car over the last couple of laps. I wouldn't be surprised if he drives away and potentially tries to catch Jeffrey Colmill in the next level racing car, who's only about 7 seconds ahead, and that could be a nice little battle, especially if there's a little bit of traffic that maybe will hold up the next level racing car. We've got about 20 minutes till they jump into the pits yet again, and yeah, I think they'll probably take that 20 minutes and try and just chip away at that lead.
Yeah, I think that could be the way to go. There is Daniel Nestorovic, and that car was in the lead of the class for a long while until Dennis Neidhart had anything to do with it, and ever since the issues with David Plasman, it has dropped the car back into 22nd position, 8th in class. However, we know that car's very quick. They're only 3.3 seconds adrift of Manuel Talentio in the Apex Hunters United GTE entry. A very good livery, as you alluded to earlier. Like you say, it looks like if you saw that in a GTE paddock, you probably wouldn't be surprised. Like you say, very similar to some of the liveries we've seen in real life. The lead gap now within that 5-second margin. Paul Searle 4.9 seconds ahead of Nick Foster. And once again, we've got to a point where there isn't really a battle that's evolving. The closest cars we've got is Sam Helson and Michael Shaber for stage of 4 Elements Racing Team, and Sam Hellisman for stage 1 Racing Junior. 1.1 seconds separating the pair of them, so it looks like they're getting closer and closer together. And looking at the last lap time again, as they cross the line now, once again a slight variation as expected, but the number 6 car, the trail car, is about 0.2 quicker, 0.3 quicker. That adds up over what is a 5-kilometre circuit. And if you're just doing lap after lap after lap, this battle probably is going to start opening up as we see the lead battles slowly start to open up as well. Now 4.6 seconds separating the lead too. Yeah,
the lead battle is certainly going to be really tasty. Whether they can close that gap within the next 20 minutes, like we were saying with a couple of the other battles in LMP2, that's going to be the real key. And very much looking forward to seeing that. And I think we've had just a question on the chat by Max. I don't think the overlay does quite update, but we'll see if we can reload that to get Paul Searle up on that LMP2. There we go. And thank you very much for the eagle-eyed viewers amongst you, even if you are snitches with the coronavirus going around in the stands. But yeah, thank you very much for pointing that one out. But yeah, it's a couple of battles are separated at the moment, but they seem just to be getting reeled back in. It's stuff like traffic. That's what gets in the way of this sort of thing. So as soon as they're sort of, oh my days, going very up the inside, the 72 car, that caught me very by surprise. The 6, he just dived. I think he just missed his braking zone. That could have been mad.
Let's have another look back. Look at the number 6 car. Massive look up the inside. I thought he might even collect the Porsche. Very, very deep on the brakes. Possibly missed his braking marker with the LMP2 on his inside. Nothing major there. We will go back live now. However, that might have thrown him out of his rhythm, however, because just a little mistake like that can almost ruin your confidence for the next couple of laps going into that corner. If you, for example, spin coming out of a corner, I'm sure, Jacko, you'll know what I'm on about. If you make that mistake, as much as you want to forget about it and get your head down, for the next few laps you'll think, right, I made the mistake here, what can't I do? What can I get away with here? And then you might just sacrifice a couple of tenths, which slowly starts to add up until you get that confidence back in the car to go back around there at the original speed.
Yeah, it's crucial really that you sort of just try and forget about it as much as possible, which is nearly impossible. But try and forget about it as quickly as possible and relearn what your tyres can do, because obviously they'll be wearing away a little bit, and as that happens, you know, the traction that they gain on the road, the slowing down speed, shall we say, is different to when you first bolted the tyres on. So he's going to need to maybe alter that braking zone just a touch. But I think genuinely it was just a bit of a lapse in concentration and a complete mistake, because he instantly went to the inside of the circuit. So it wasn't like, I don't think he really went for the lunge. I just think he tried to avoid anybody else, making sure he wasn't going into the back. So I think he just missed his braking zone, and I'm sure in the next time he'll be a bit more switched on and probably be right back on him as soon as possible. We're focusing on a bit of a battle now between Marcus Gruel and Robin Menz. Obviously, Robin Menz has taken over the car, and he's had a whole host of problems in terms of penalties, whether it be iRacing or the stewards penalising him. I've seen lots of sort of contesting in the chat on Discord and stuff like that. They've tried to get it and try to get explanations, but realistically, no matter what the explanation is, the fact that it's happened, it has happened. So they're going to have to try and deal with it as best they can, and the best way to deal with it is to get your head down, try and put in some quick laps, consistent laps, try and be clean, overtake the drivers ahead of you, and just make sure that you're driving the car in the best way you can, conservative, keep the tyres alive, all that sort of thing. So we'll expect to see Robin Menz, who's part of a good team. I expect him to be pushing on. And maybe, you know, come the next driver change, he'll have pushed himself up through the order just a touch as he overtakes the GTE cars.
Yeah, you can see that traffic's still starting to play it, or still playing a part in this race, and you can see it's slowly getting darker. The headlights starting to make more of an impression on the circuit, and as it stands, it's still Marcus Gruel leading. However, leading this battle, then it's Robin Menz in the PM Esports machine. They are getting closer. The lead battle, funnily enough, Jacko, is starting to work his way back out again. Nick Foster lapping in the 155s. Paul Searle now into the 154, so he's definitely picked up his pace, taken the message. He's gone, right, okay, I'm going to get my head down. Maybe just taking it easy, making sure he doesn't overdrive, trying to get the car up to temperature. He's got the car at a comfortable point, and he's really starting to open the taps now, and that's probably to the delight of his team. However, Nick Foster, who's probably used up a bit more fuel and a bit more of his tyres, trying to catch back up, might not be to his liking, having lost that time. However, that gap has drastically just dropped, so maybe a bit of a lock-up or a bit of a mistake there for Paul Searle. Now 4.5 seconds, so the gap is fluctuating very quickly, and it's still coming down. So whether this is some sort of issue for Paul Searle, he's got the draft assistance of the cars ahead, but that gap is slowly starting to come down once again. So quite an odd little battle here, and the gap is still coming down with the draft assistance as well from Paul Searle. So I'm not sure what's happened there.
Well, I think it's more the fact that I don't think Paul Searle necessarily sped up enormously. He did do a better lap time than he did before, but it's sort of matching his first flying lap since he jumped in the car. I think it's just the fact that Nick Foster in that final lap was 3 seconds slower than what he was lapping before, which meant that the gap was increased back up. Obviously, a net gain of a second for Paul Searle. And now he's gone maybe back through the traffic a little bit better. Maybe he had a bit of a moment before, and he's starting to catch up the leader again. So I would expect the gap to keep coming down. As you say, he may have treated the car really rather harshly, Nick Foster, but I'd expect the gap to start coming down, just like we're seeing the gap to come down here between Robin Menz and Marcus Gruel. And the PM Esports car looks to the inside now. He'll have late on the brakes. It's one of the easiest passes to do on the circuit, as long as you can get the car stopped for the apex, which he does expertly, and it's another place gained by Robin Menz to try and, better that penalty that he had before.
Yeah, great stuff from Robin Menz. Like you say, textbook overtake. We see it a lot. Either ends of the straight seem to be the hot spot. The heavier braking zones are the preferred locations in these cars. Still, Robin Menz is now in front. He's starting to build that gap up already, up to 6 tenths, 7 tenths of a second. Something to do with setup possibly as well. maybe slightly more comfortable in the higher downforce sections of the circuit, up to a second. Great stuff from Robin Menz, really started to build that gap. There is Harry Pipes, still being hounded by Jeffrey Kolmel in the Next Level Racing LMP2. And the pair of them, once again, fluctuating the gap between the pair of them. We'll try and keep an eye on that one. Do we have a close-up ourselves? Well, we do indeed. There is Dimmy Deals in the CCTS Esport Endurance Machine, starting to put the pressure on Robin Young in the KF Motorsport machine, and we've seen a lot of that KF Motorsport Mercedes, the number 2 right now, and they can't seem to catch a break. They're always in a battle, no matter where they end up.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much constant for them right now, and yeah, it's probably not what they expected in a 24-hour race, but it's certainly I'm pretty certain anyway they're enjoying it, especially in terms of sort of like that close racing. Is what every racer wants to do, is close and hard fought, and you know, you're earning your place on the tarmac and everything like that. So as the LMP car goes to the inside, he's had a bit of a contact though, but he probably should have expected the LMP car to come up, and that's actually conceded the place to the driver ahead of Deals. So yeah, he's going to have to try and do all that work again.
He will indeed, and there is a slight name error. I will try and get that sorted on the timing tower. We've had an incident for Michael Scheiber. What has happened here in the number 6 machine? Down the straight, please don't make contact with the Porsche in front. Very late on the brakes. Does he lock up? Nope, just over-rotates the car on the way in, parks it on the apex. Does he get beached? Nope, grabs first gear and gets going once again. A pretty innocent little mistake there, but keeps going nonetheless. And it's just those little mistakes which seem to add up. Justin Nye has made a meal of it by the looks of it. He's been off the road for a little while. Does he cut this bit? Oh, big hit of the sausage curb, damages the rear of his car. Let's hope that doesn't massively affect the performance. However, just deny it, that was quite a big moment. That was pretty much all fours off the road there. So going through, bounces. There you go, all fours off the ground, and you see that that damage develops on the rear. Not because he hit the curb, but because he landed so hard. The suspension obviously tried to absorb the impact, and the car's just so low. It ended up collecting the ground. But quite an odd incident, but we've seen it happen before. And the closest cars we've got on circuit back up in the LMP2 category. Once again, 2 cars that we haven't seen much of. However, this is the Karts Academy number 84 machine being passed here by Austin Foster. The 4 Elements Racing Team Red, or Team Blue, that one, is now in front, flashing his lights, possibly for the cameras once again, or to let that Porsche know that I'm on my way. I've just made an overtake. Please don't hold me up.
Yeah, please move out of the way courteously and quickly is probably what he's thinking, but now he's going to potentially dive at the inside. No, he's not. So, yeah, this is sort of one of the parts of the circuit that he has to really think about where he's going to make the move, but he's managed to do it. We've seen plenty of LMP cars going around the outside there. It's quite easy for them. As long as the other car doesn't wash out wide or over-rotate, it's quite easily done. But, yeah, no, it's a good move by Foster, and I'm sure after a hell host of black flag incidents, he'll be trying to push through. He's been in the car since the start, and speaking of a car that's been in plenty of black flag incidents and spins and whatnot, the Wolfpack car now being headed by Ben Edelman. He's actually made his way. He's about mid-pack in the GT3 cars now, so I'm sure with the pace that he showed in qualifying, or that they showed in qualifying, they've got a car underneath them that can really push to get through the field if they keep their nose clean.
Yeah, they've got the work to do. I'm still trying to fix this this slight little overlay issue, so please do bear with me. I'm not 100% sure why it's not quite happy with the changes that are being made, but yeah, it might be something that we've just got to put up with. Sadly, let's see what that does. There we go. We have fixed the overlay. So Jelle Stomborg, you are welcome. I've managed to fix your name so it does show up correctly now. The number 217 DS CDA Esports red Audi. We've seen that in its fair share of battles as well, but it's in no man's land at the moment. 19 seconds up to Ian Roots in the SRW Esports Mercedes, and then 17 seconds back to Dimmy Deals in the CCTS Esport Endurance Machine. So quite a nice little situation to be in. You can manage the traffic as much as you like. You can decide to let it by. You can decide to hold it up for just a little while you get comfortable in letting them by. You can drive your own race, and it's quite a nice situation to be in. As much as you want to be gaining positions and gaining time on the car ahead, you can be doing that, But if you're doing it without a car chasing you about, it's so much nicer. You feel way less pressure on you. Just keep on churning your laps out nice and clean and consistently, and as long as what it's going to come down to is traffic. As long as you manage it perfectly, then problem solved. You can get to the end and have quite a relaxed stint.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be happy as Larry in there is Stromberg, and yeah, like you said, it's the easiest and best place to be in. Even if he is in sort of mid-pack, a little bit mid-pack obscurity, he's certainly going to be relatively pleased with how his race is going at the moment. The car looks fresh. He's on some nice tyres. He's just going to try and get this through to the next stage of pit stops. As you said, keep the traffic flowing through him, and just make sure that he's lapping in about the same 3 second sort of margin, 2 second if he can, margin that he's lapping every lap. And just have a look at the head of the field as well between Paul Searle and the drivers that are potentially trying to chase him. I think there's been a big change. I don't know if my timing tower is deceiving me, but it looks like Paul Searle is actually pulled away, and I think we've lost the number 3 car. Was it the one that was chasing him?
The reason why we've lost the number 3 car is that it's been into the pit lane, and of all people to get behind the wheel, it's Shane Van Gisbergen. We mentioned him earlier. So the Australian V8 supercar driver is now behind the wheel of that Apex Hunters United Esports Lmp2 machine, and we know Shane Van Gisbergen has got the vast amount of experience from real life, of which some of it will obviously convert over. He's had 35 race wins in the Australian V8 Supercar Series. He's won a championship in 2016, so he definitely knows what he's doing. So keep an eye on him. Still getting used to the car, of course, having just come out of the pit lane on lap 77. So 3 laps ago, Shane took to the track. Keep an eye on him though, because like you say, we've dropped that car back from P2. But with Shane behind the wheel, it wouldn't surprise me if he got back up there pretty sharpish.
Yeah, I'm absolutely very excited and very honoured to be commentating on a race that has got such a calibre of driver as Shane in. I think we actually maybe have Chris Delulu as well in here at some point. So, yeah, very excited to see how those guys do on the sim, whether they can transfer their real-life racing over to the sim world. And if they're involved in this event, it probably means that they're relatively quick, and we can expect big things from them.
Let's hope that he can continue on. There is Marvin Guillermo-Mantz in the Next Level Racing Endurance team. We've seen lots to do with that car. However, they've found themselves at a bit of a weird point, because they've got 2.5 seconds up to Sam Helsen in the Stage 1 Racing Junior car, and 4.3 seconds ahead of Michael Schieber in the 4 Elements Racing team. So they've got a little bit to do. They've either got to almost turn the pace up to catch up, or you never know. Like we've mentioned, if you're in almost a space of your own and you've got a bit of clean track, you can just sit churning out your laps. You might be gaining little by little, but you're keeping it clean, and that's the most important part. Somebody that might not have kept it clean though is our P2 driver. There is Falco Verkamp, who is now 1 minute and 11 seconds back. He's had a bit of an issue. Has he locked up going into the chicane, or ended up pointing backwards, as is so common in these LMP2 machines? Going in, that's very late on the brakes, and there you go, just snatched a brake, and that just shows, like you mentioned earlier, Jacko, you turn in on the brakes in these LMP2s, it will seem fine until 1 second later, snap oversteer, end up pointing the wrong way. But good recovery from Falco.
Yeah, he hasn't lost out on too much. It's not like he has to carve through an awful lot of traffic anymore. Well, speaking of which, he's having to carve through an awful lot of traffic, and the problem for him is this traffic is actually for race position between the GT3 cars. He looks at and it's caused a crash in the background, and I think that is a driver that we've seen an awful lot. I'm just trying to find who it was. Here it is. It's Robin Young, actually, who's jumped in the car now. It was Denart. And a big hit at the backside by a fellow GT3 driver is the last thing that he wanted. But that's the problem when you have LMP2 cars who didn't do anything wrong. We've actually had a look at the back end of Young, and it just looks like, mate, you're terrified from that camera angle if you didn't know what was coming. But yeah, that was Shay Van Workum. So not ideal for either of those, and they'll be potentially the stewards to have a look at that one.
Yeah, I think that was, like you say, it's just traffic. The LMP2 carved his way up to the inside. Robin Young had to sacrifice a bit of time, and I think that was just, yeah, Che Van Workum maybe not expecting the car ahead to slow down quite as much, but that is just the nature of those back-to-back S's. It's such a tricky part of the circuit to get right on your own, let alone with traffic trying to work through as well. Closest cars we've got on circuit is the number 121 DRC Red machine. I say that, but they've started to separate out. That's a very busy section of circuit by the looks of it. Ian Roots in the mix there as well. Let's have a look at this. GT3's all mixing up, and an LMP2 goes screaming by. and it just shows that although you might be clear one lap, that is a very congested part of the circuit. So busy. What I'm going to do is quite off colour for me. I don't tend to show the track map, but I just want to show how busy it is. You can see the back straight. It's got what, 4 cars on it. However, the first and final sector, there is so much congestion, so many cars all trying to work their way through at all one point. So it just shows that you can have a lap where there's literally no traffic, but you can have laps where there's quite a lot of it.
Yeah, all of a sudden, just the traffic just appears out of nowhere, like we were saying before. An awful lot of sort of clean air, and then all of a sudden there's absolutely nothing. But this is the fight for, I think, about 10th place. Sam Helson. It is for 10th place, sorry. I wasn't looking at my timing towers quite as closely as I probably should have been. Sam Helson and Amance as well in the Lmp2 cars are just very close to each other, and this could well be a bit of a fight for maybe cracking into the overall top 10. Obviously, a little fight, as I said before, really. The podium is one thing, but any fight, as they have to avoid the GT3 car, any fight you're involved in is a fight that you want to win as a racing driver. And as Amance goes up to the inside of the first corner, I think Helson has to actually let that go. And Hellman's, I'm pretty sure that's mayonnaise. Apologies, Helson.
It is indeed, but yeah, like you say, Marvin Hudam Amance up into P10, so into the top 10, obviously overall and in class. And that lead gap slowly starting to extend once again. Paul Searle 1 minute and 16 seconds ahead in the 1 minute 53s now, so 2 seconds off the fastest lap in that car, which sounds like a lot, but bearing in mind he has been in that car for a long while. So although the car will be getting lighter, it might not, it won't be possibly turning in as well. The track might be getting cooler, but the tyres will start to wear as well. Let's have a look at the weather. The track has gone down an entire degree since we last look, approaching on 6 o'clock in sim time. So the sun is very much slowly starting to dip down below the horizon, and you can see the lights starting to play an effect. You can see that the drivers will start to rely on the natural lighting and the lighting on the front of their cars. And we've said it already, Jacko, this track isn't lit, so the drivers that are struggling to maybe spot the cars coming up behind them, or struggling to negotiate traffic in the day, it's gonna almost triple in difficulty during the night, because if you, like you say, if you've got damage and the headlights are dipped slightly, or the car's just approaching so quickly, and sometimes the livery doesn't help, it's going to be a very busy night stint for a lot of the drivers involved.
Well, it's a tricky one, really, isn't it? Because you need to... Oh, the LMP car almost going straight into the back of the GT3. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because obviously you want to... It's when do you put your most confident driver in? When do you put your sort of best driver in, basically? Is it where at the start, when there's an awful lot of things that can go wrong in terms of traffic and whatnot? Or is it when the night starts to come? And, you know, it becomes all that more difficult. You know, when do you put certain people in your team in? Is it voluntary? I don't know, to be fair. We can ask you, Jack, can't we? I mean, what was the plan with your endurance outings? Was it a case of it was very clear who was going to go into which section, or was it a case of volunteer for the night shift, or X, Y, and Z? What was the plan whenever you've raced?
A lot of it was just looking at experience, like you say, time behind the wheel, and just time in the car makes or breaks a race. And the way we did it is the most experienced driver, the driver that had done the most races, and specifically in that car, got to start the car purely because they knew how other cars would react around them, or they had a better idea. They knew what the car felt like going into a race, and that we trusted them with the pressure, of course. And then going into the night, we had a couple of drivers that only raced during the night purely because that's what they tested in, and they felt confident having plenty of grip during the night. And then everything in between was just sort of pick and choose. Yes, you put your hand up for that. Yes, you want to do that. And some of it was just going off previous events, because there was a driver that hadn't crossed the line before at a special event. So we just said, yeah, you know what, you haven't done it before, we'll give that to you. It's an honour in theory to bring the car home and to cross the line at the end of a special event. And if you haven't done that before, yes, you can still celebrate with your team, but there's no experience really like driving the car till the end of the race, taking the checkered flag yourself. It is really nice experience, and if you haven't done that, you put your name forward, and if you get it, great. It can really sort of make a good day even better, which I think is what some of the drivers might be doing. But then at the end of the day, if you want to win, sometimes you can't just go off sort of moral code. Oh, you haven't done it before. It's going right. Maybe if you're not so quick, we'll put you in here, and then we can get this driver in here just to see whether they can make up some time at the end. So there's so much you can chop and change with endurance racing. Sprint racing, you just sort of go for it and see what you can do with strategy along the way. Endurance racing, you've got to plan it out before you do it. You've got to think hours in advance. So it's a tricky little dynamic to get your head around, but once you've done it, it really is a joy to watch and to be part of as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing actually. Like you said, like who's done the most practice in the night time and stuff. That's something I was sort of wanting to pick up on. Is it something that you maybe would anticipate you decide beforehand? So you might say, okay, Jack, you're doing the night shift. We might have Hassa opening the race. We might have Ed May finishing it off. You might have, and then you might say, right, well, Chaz, and Hassa, you're doing the night shift, say. You go and practice for that in this specific car. Is that something, maybe a conversation, or is it just literally on previous experience? Is it something you decide right at the beginning, as soon as you decide that you're going to practice and do this event, or is it something that happens about a couple of days before?
Yeah, it's a weird one because one, if that was our team, we would obviously win because we're all that good.
Oh, amazing!
Of course, yeah, obviously. But no, it's a weird one. It depends on your team really, because I spend a lot of time practicing in the day and practicing in the night. So no matter what I get given, I'm happy with that stint. But if we come up with a rough sketch, and if it turns out you've got the into the night and the out of the night stint, you will do the majority of your testing during the night because that's where you'll spend most of your time. Whereas some drivers have got the odd bit where they race at the hottest part of the day, so at midday, but then they also race at the coldest part in the middle of the night. So it's a tricky one, and you can practice when and where you want in theory, but a lot of it is just managing what you do yourself and adjusting your driving style, because you never know what it will be like. You could do all the practice in the world and the situation could be completely different. So lots of little bits that the drivers have got to think about, and of course traffic. You can never simulate traffic, you can never simulate a proper battle. You can battle with your teammate, but you will never take it as seriously as a battle with another driver. So like I say, you can do all the practice and all the training and as much seat time in the world in like an offline practice. However, in the race, so much can change. And like we said at the start, if you have an incident on the first few laps, that's your strategy out the window for the rest of the race. So you can do all this practice and it can come to nothing within, 10 minutes of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's a race like this one, pretty unforgiving. I mean, 24 hours and they only have one fast repair. I thought when I read that must have been a mistake, but that seems like a very harsh one. But yeah, fascinating insight, Jack. Thank you very much. Because as I said, I've never been involved with anything like that, and it's always something that I've wondered on. As I'm sure it's a whole host of people who are watching the stream as well. So yeah, great insight. As we're watching this little race though as well between, I think it's Team DRC Red and the Digital Apex Racing team. In 4th and 5th of the respective GTE class, doing a good job. And to be fair, although the GTE class is basically flooded with Porsches, they're actually, the top two is a Ford and a Ferrari, and then third place is a Porsche. So yeah, they're clearly, the balance of power maybe isn't that weighted towards the Porsche, or Dennis Neidhart is an absolute wizard, which is, oh my days, have you seen the lighting on that in the Raccoon? Absolutely stunning.
I've got to say, I am a massive fan of the Ford GT. I raced at the 24 Hours of Daytona at the start of this year, and I was driving the Porsche and I was stuck behind a Ford. The trouble is we were so similar on pace, so I went for the move, and I might get past, but then in 2 laps time we'd just swap positions again. And probably the best part of that, it was such a good looking and a good sounding battle, because the Porsche sounded amazing and the Ford looks amazing at night with those LEDs on the inside of the cowling. And yeah, I think you can change the colour of those. You can change it from on all the main colours. You can have it purple, white, green, red, yellow, and one more, I think. And it does look very, very good. And I think that is something that I am rather jealous of with Ed and Hassa. They can see all of these cars at night when they all look amazing with all the little LEDs and the little bits that we haven't seen during the day. We said that we heard that the DRC cars look a little better, and I think that might be a little chrome strip going along the door trim below the window. We'll keep an eye out. And it looks like it's almost an LED across there. We've got a Porsche following along. That's Sonny Rosario, I think, for Digital Apex Racing, following along in the number 117. And like you say, that's something that I hadn't really noticed. It's Ford leading Ferrari, leading Porsche. We said that going into this, the Porsche seemed fan favourite. However, Dennis Neidhart and Nick Stoop have definitely showed us that we're wrong. He's gone, yeah, you know what, you think that the Porsche is going to be the favourite. Well, it might be the favourite, but it's not the quickest.
Well, sometimes, you know, the roaring chicken nuggets, I mean, they're just so fast. But no, it's, yeah, the Ferrari, they're doing a really good job. And so, as I said, it's the lone Ford. Amazing to see that car is up the order. And here goes Verkamp. What happens to him? Oh, did he just come across the GT3 car and then just ends up getting a bit of a snap on the rear end? So, yeah, again, Verkamp, I think that's the second time we've seen a similar thing happened to him. I didn't quite catch. I was looking at the timing tower. Was there a little bit of contact? Oh, yeah, you could hear that. There's a big amount of contact. So it wasn't a snap on the rear end. It was a bump on the rear end.
It was indeed. And we had an incident at a very similar time for Che van Workum in towards the hairpin. That's very close to the Astro turf. Does he keep it? No, it just slowly starts to over-rotate. Pendulums around on the apex. Does grab first gear and gets back going again. And you can see the brake discs on that Mercedes glowing. Just shows that the forces they're putting through these cars is no short of a miracle. The fact that these cars can consistently run for 24 hours of racing, and the drivers can consistently run for 24 hours of racing as well. It really just pays dividend to the respect that people have for the drivers. I know I've done some 24 hours, and it looks easy on the face of it. You do your stint, you go to bed, but it's so much more than that. And Ed, I just hope that you can experience it. We'll have to do a VRS endurance. I know they're only 3 hours, but definitely
that's long enough for me.
Definitely worth it. We have got a couple of battles slowly starting to hot up as well. This is Marvin Guillermo-Mans slowly catching up to Rob Clockie in the Next Level Racing LMP2 machine. So once again, LMP2 is getting closer together. We've still got this battle going on between Sonny Rosario and Mateusz Debchuk in the Team DRC Red machine. So two Porsches battling away. A little further back in the GTE category, and another couple of Porsches battling away. This is Brian Peters and Justin Naya. So IRNL Black versus Next Level Racing, and I think those are all the battles we've got on show. These are the closest cars at the moment though, and only 2/10 separating them as we're about to go on to another lap.
Yeah, it's I'm fascinated really. You mentioned that obviously we've had Dennis Neidhart in from the start, and there's been a various sort of driver changes throughout the field. Neidhart is actually one of the few that hasn't driver changed. We've had the Simracersworld Esports car had 3 driver changes so far. We've had the lead car, the CXR Peugeot Black car, have a driver change, but at the inside, I'm going to have a position change, not just a driver change, but a position change, as Brian Peters takes Justin Nyhurst's Next Level Racing car to move up to 10th position on the GTE grid. So we have Peters in the IRNL Black car, serving himself through to the top 10.
Yeah, good little move there on the run up towards turn 1. We've got some other battles slowly starting to develop elsewhere. This is Michael Schieber and Sam Hellison getting closer together, half a second between the pair of them. You can see the LED boards on the side letting us know what number they are. That is going to be a massive help throughout the night. So the number 72 chasing down the number 6. Close battles further back there. Look at this side by side between the two Porsches. This is Sonny Rosario and Mateusz Debchuk in towards the hairpin. Once again, a common overtaking place. There you go. Position made, while also trying to think about our leader flashing his lights. That's got to be extra distracting as we go in towards the night. And just because we have looked at him, but he told us not to look at him, we're going to do it. Ian Roots, you're on stream.
Yeah, he is indeed. Yeah, he's be interesting to see if we could drag him into the comms box, but I don't think he'd appreciate that too much. And by the looks of it, we can't anyway. But he's letting a couple of the cars pass, and a bit of a shame that we can't get some funky LED lights on that Mercedes. To be fair, because I think an orange LED strip would look really good. But to be fair, as it sort of looks good car anyway. The Mercedes is a really mean-looking machine, isn't it? It's a sort of very intimidating car as it thunders towards you in such a low rumble. But here's Gloeck, and I think he's got a Mance just behind him. So this LMP battle may well end up being a bit hot and heated as well. And tell you what, the chrome looks good as the lights shine on it as well. Look at the well, it just looks amazing. To be fair, it's a very good looking car into the night.
It really is. It just shows that with the various levels of chrome and the amount of time put into these liveries, it really does pay off. And we've got to remember that this is an inter-team battle here. You've got Rob Clockie and Marvin Guillermo-Mans, both together, both racing for Next Level Racing, albeit various divisions of the two. And I do like how the sponsors, they're almost luminous. There you go, that's the word. As the lights shine on them compared to the chrome surroundings, which is that's surely going to impress the sponsors for next.
Yeah, what won't impress them is if they come together though. They're getting very close to a couple of other cars, and as soon as one sort of jinks out to try and take a back marker, they end up flying into his teammate.
Yeah, it's very Red Bull-esque at this point, isn't it? You see the teammates battling away. Just hope you go, keep your fingers crossed that they don't come together. And that was something I was going to bring up. You've got to think that as teammates, they are in contact with each other and just letting each other know what you're going to do. There you go, plenty of room given. Marvin Julian Mamant up into 8th, and Rob Clokey in the number 77 just sits back. And yeah, he avoided turning in, made sure he gave his teammate loads of room, knowing full well that he'd be able to get back at it on the straight with the draft assistance. Are we going to see a change of position? I think this might be team orders off the cards here. Had a little look, but maybe this time by, yeah, more than happy just to sit behind for the moment. We've still got cars battling away. Another little inter-team rivalry. We've got Team DRC Blue and Team DRC Red battling away. The number 121 versus number 116. We were speaking about just a few moments ago, getting in, reach into the commentary box. If you are a driver and you are taking part in this race, do feel free to join the Simracersworld TV Discord and hop into the interview rating room. We'll be more than happy to talk to you, and we'll maybe just get probably a little more of an insight into what the drivers are dealing with, because it's all well and good sat up here in the commentary box, Jacko, going, oh well, they're doing this, you can do that, you can do this, but you don't really know until you speak to a driver, because they know exactly what it's like out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been involved with races, and then you watch them back because you think, oh, it's an amazing race or something like that, and the commentator starts talking and you think, that's not at all what I was thinking. So if anybody wants to come in here and correct us, you are more than welcome. But up the order goes, I'm actually missed who that was. There is the 121 car of Dubchuk, and I think that was the 116 car of Team DRC Blue going ahead of Team DRC Red, actually. It didn't look that hard.
Still the lead DRC car, the chase DRC car, pardon me, and Luticus in the number 116, slowly starting to bridge that gap a little bit with the Lmp2 traffic plane apart. There is the number 117 Digital Apex Academy Porsche up the road as well, so we could see a little 3-car battle here. LMP2's slowly starting to peel into the pit lane as well. It's got to that point in the race where we're starting to see the pit windows open for the various different classes. At some point there will be an overlap, no doubt, between the LMP2s, the GTs and the GT3s, so we could end up with a very busy pit lane at one point or another. Speaking of the LMP2s, this battle has been almost, it's slowly starting to slow down, which is not what I like to see. You'd have thought that Marvin Julian Mamant, as much as he would want to just start like charging forward and continuing to gain places, you'd have thought maybe he'd hang about a little bit just to keep the number 77 of his teammate almost within the draft range, just to help each other around as the race goes on, because a little bit of time here could add up to quite a lot going into the final few stages of the race.